Naruto, Talent Analyst. Chapter 1, Indra Bloodline. God-level talent analysis system starts. Detecting host's ability, talent. Detected that host has talent, Uchiha bloodline. Amplification is being initiated, the amplification is completed. Congratulations to the host for getting talent, Indra bloodline. Yuta's mind was confused for a while, but he quickly got out of his stupor. After 7 years living in the world of Naruto, his cheat had finally arrived. You know, the world of Naruto is a world dominated by bloodlines. Without a strong enough talent or bloodline, it would be difficult to even become a Jonin, let alone a Kage-level powerhouse. And although he had transmigrated to become an Uchiha clansman, his talent was not outstanding. Even if he practiced diligently every day, his grades in the ninja school were only above average. According to his knowledge of the plot, his fellow classmate Uchiha Itachi will graduate early in the near future. Without enough strength, how would he be able to deal with the future genocide crisis? Furthermore, since he has arrived in the Naruto world, why would he not want to stand on the top and overlook the scenery of the ninja world? Yuta immediately opened the system panel. Host, Uchiha Yuta. Age, 7 years old. Comprehensive strength, genin, weak. Sharingan pupil power, LV1, 0/50. Chakra, LV1, 15 of 50. Chakra attribute, fire. Talent, Indra bloodline. Ninjutsu, 3 basic techniques. Indra bloodline, your pupil power will grow naturally with time and exercise, and it doesn't have the defects of the Mangekyo Sharingan. Pupil power equals energy source of pupil techniques. The greater the pupil power, the more powerful the pupil technique, Genjutsu, Sharingan. Remarks: every time the overall strength of the host increases by 1 stage, the system will analyze a new talent. Exclamation point. He had hit the jackpot. Yuta's breathing became a little short, and his heart started beating wildly in his chest, and an uncontrollable excitement swept through his entire body. Who is Indra? He is the eldest son of the Sage of 6 Paths, the ancestor of the Uchiha, and the source of the Sharingan bloodline limit. According to legend, he could use the full-body Susanoo with just the Two-tomo Sharingan. According to the description of the system, his ordinary Uchiha bloodline had now been increased to the level of his ancestor Indra. As for the defects of the Mangekyo Sharingan mentioned by the system, it is naturally the problem of blindness and the need to transplant a close relative's Mangekyo Sharingan to awaken the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. His parents had died early in this life, and he was basically raised by the parents of Uchiha Izumi who lived next door. Where would he be able to find a relative for a pair of Mangekyo Sharingan? But since the power of his bloodline had been increased to the level of Indra, this problem would naturally disappear. After his Sharingan reaches the level of 3-tomo, his pupil power will continue to grow to the level of Mangekyo and Eternal Mangekyo without any problems. No flaws, no bottlenecks. Just like Indra, the ancestor of the Uchiha, he will have the same level of pupil power as the Eternal Mangekyo with just a 3-tomo Sharingan. Come to think of it, Mangekyo Sharingan should be a result of the lack of purity of bloodline of the Uchiha. Because the power of the bloodline is insufficient, the 3-tomo Sharingan can only be mutated through violent emotional fluctuations, thereby increasing the pupil power. But this mutation comes at a cost. It overdraws future potential. Yuta calmed down and experienced the changes brought about by Indra's bloodline. First, the most obvious was the increase in his amount of chakra. According to his estimation, his current chakra is now 3 times as much as before. Although Indra did not inherit the sage body, he is a genius after all. Even if he didn't have as much chakra as Azura, he still had a lot more chakra than normal ninjas. Secondly, his physical attributes, reaction speed, insight, understanding of ninjutsu, etc. had changed from the inside out. Although it didn't look like anything had happened from the outside, Yuta could feel the drastic changes in himself. He threw out 4 shurikens at will, and a crisp metal clash sounded in the air. The 4 shurikens collided and changed direction, hitting the trees in the courtyard with a few thuds. It worked. A look of joy appeared on Yuta's face. He had never been able to master the Uchiha-style shuriken throwing technique before. After all, it was not easy. To use it properly, one has to throw multiple shuriken at the same time, let them collide with each other in the air, and attack the target from multiple angles and directions. He had originally thought that he would only be able to do it after awakening the Sharingan. But in fact, as long as someone has enough talent, can they do it without activating the Sharingan? According to the timeline of the original work, Uchiha Itachi killed his clansman at the age of 13. I am the same age as him. That is to say, there are still 6 years left before the extermination of the clan. Yuta pondered in his heart and felt a sense of urgency. At the age of 13, facing the crisis of genocide. Uchiha Sasuke, the reincarnation of Indra, had just defected at the age of 13 and awakened the Two-tomo Sharingan. The system has given him talent, but he still needs to rely on himself to make the most use of his talent. First of all, he must graduate from the ninja school as soon as possible, and depend on the guidance of the Jonin assigned to him to quickly improve his strength. Otherwise, he would be like Sasuke, who became only a genin at the age of 12, and could only use a great fireball technique when it comes to ninjutsu. He had no problem with the 3 basic techniques before. With Indra's bloodline, the 3 basic techniques are even less of a problem. However, if he wants to graduate early at the age of 7, he still needs to show some level of strength. And there is another reason he wants to graduate early. He has had enough of listening to the bullshit will of fire every day. Why should he believe in that will of fire? Konoha is clearly a large-scale semi-autonomous military organization, and ninjas are clearly committed to killing people. In addition to this, there is a course on the history of Konoha, which is almost entirely devoted to the glorious exploits of the third Hokage Sarutobi Huruzen. It says that under the leadership of the third Hokage, Konoha has gradually developed to the peak. Someone like him who knew the plot almost burst out laughing when he first found out about it. But someone like Uchiha Itachi takes the course of Will of Fire very seriously. In Yuta's opinion, Uchiha Itachi was a typical example of thinking without learning. Even though he didn't learn anything and didn't understand anything, he started thinking about the village and the Uchiha. And this thinking was based on the premise of him being brainwashed by Sarutobi Huruzen. Isn't that obviously harmful? No wonder he didn't hesitate to kill his parents and wipe out his entire clan. What a filial son. Feelings of disgust surged in Yuta's heart, and he couldn't help but complain. Suddenly, a cold chakra flooded into his eyes. As soon as he noticed it, Yuta immediately went to look in the mirror. In the mirror, he noticed that his black pupils had turned scarlet, and a comma-like jet-black thing had appeared in each of his eyes. Chapter 2, Feeling of Becoming a Genius. He just awakened his eyes. He just had a little mood swing just now, right? Yuta became stunned. As expected of Indra's bloodline. Sharingan is called the eye that portrays the soul. Not just the Mangekyo, but every stage of Sharingan requires some emotional stimulation to be awakened. In the original book, Uchiha Itachi's genin teammates died at Uchiha Obito's to protect him when he was 8 years old. This caused him to awaken his Sharingan. Uchiha Sasuke awakened his Sharingan when his big brother killed his parents. Uchiha Obito awakened his Sharingan when Kakashi became injured to protect him, and he even directly awakened the Two-tomo Sharingan. And what about him, Yuta? Just because he hated Uchiha Itachi, and he made a rant, he awakened the Sharingan. So this is the power of a terrifying bloodline. As long as the power of the bloodline is strong enough, when the pupil power reaches the critical point, only a simple emotional stimulation will be needed to advance. Yuta verified his conjecture about Mangekyo. Sure enough, the Uchiha's need for major emotional instability to awaken the Mangekyos is because of their inferior level of bloodline. While Yuta was learning about the Sharingan's abilities. In the yard of the neighbor's house next door, a petite figure climbed up the ladder and stuck her head out on the wall. Yuta, the rice is ready. It was his neighbor, and childhood sweetheart who had grown up with him together, Uchiha Izumi. When his parents were still around, the two families had always been on good terms. After his parents died, Izumi's parents basically always took care of him. On the night of Nine Tails' rebellion a year ago, he had warned Izumi's family to escape in advance. Since then, Izumi's parents have raised him like their own child. Yuta deactivated his Sharingan, took a deep breath, and calmed down. However, Yuta found that he couldn't calm down at all. It's like you have an interesting game in front of you but your parents are calling you to do chores. Yuta's mood was excited and high, almost impatient. So when he was eating, he couldn't calm down. Then, he was beaten on the head several times by Izumi's mother. After that, he barely restrained himself. After eating, he couldn't wait to pull Izumi to the yard to practice. Izumi's grades at the ninja school were even better than his. Her body is especially strong, and he has never been able to reach her level in terms of physique. Even when she just occasionally threw some punches and kicks blindly, she was able to beat him effortlessly. On Izumi's side, she prepared a set of healing items in a leisurely manner, ice towels, bandages, and so on. Then she tied her long black hair into a single ponytail behind her head. Her normally soft and gentle appearance was now a little more dashing. "I'll try my best not to hit you," Izumi said softly. "There's no need today." "No, there will be no need from now on." Yuta twitched the corner of his mouth and said. It's a bit embarrassing to hear a girl of the same age as him say something like this to him. The two quickly fought each other. When he really started to move, Yuta deeply realized the changes that had taken place in him. His strength and speed had been greatly improved. His insight had also been greatly enhanced. Even when he didn't use the Sharingan, he could quickly see the other party's movements, and his brain could quickly judge and respond sensitively. Is this what being a genius feels like? Every move requires little thought and can be handled with ease. The subtle sound of a punch resounded in his ears. Without needing to look with his eyes, Yuta reacted directly, ducking slightly to one side. He grabbed Izumi's arm at the same time, pressing it behind her and holding it against her back. Izumi was restrained before she could react, and a dull and surprised look appeared on her pretty face. Yuta. When did he become so strong? Coincidence, or something else? Recalling that she had heard Yuta say that she didn't need to hold back before, Izumi blinked and became serious. However, after a few more rounds of fighting, Izumi found herself losing more and more quickly. From her own moves being easily resolved, to gradually being unable to keep up with Yuta's rhythm, and even being subdued in just 3 or 2 moves. Stop for a moment, stop for a while, take a rest first. In the end, Izumi couldn't take it anymore and was the first to stop. Yuta, how did you become so powerful? Izumi gasped slightly, looking very curious. What she is best at is taijutsu. In the past, even if she held back, Yuta was no match for her. Now the situation had completely reversed. Recalling Yuta's unconcealed excitement during his meal, Izumi asked tentatively, could it be that you have awakened the Sharingan? But during the training just now, Yuta's eyes didn't change. That's right. The corners of Yuta's mouth twitched slightly. Chakra converged in his Ayu, and the single Tomo Sharingan appeared in his eyes. Amazing! Izumi exclaimed from the bottom of her heart. At the age of 7 to 8 years old, not many people in the entire Uchiha clan can awake the Sharingan, right? In her perception, even Uchiha Itachi, who has been number 1 in all aspects since entering school, has not awakened the Sharingan yet. It feels. After awakening the Sharingan, the whole world has become different. Yuta looked around in the yard and said. The texture of trees, the swaying of leaves in the wind, and the flapping movements of mosquitoes were all visible, and were automatically captured, analyzed and transmitted to his brain by the Sharingan. If we talk about the inside of ordinary eyes, they actively observe the information and then transmit it to the brain. But Sharingan automatically observes, analyzes, and directly transmits the results to the brain. Even if it's just a one-tomo Sharingan, the improvement in insight is not low. Sharingan is worthy of being one of the most well-known bloodline succession limits in the ninja world. Naruto, also being known as the Legend of the Eyes, is really right. After a short rest, Izumi was pulled up by Yuta to practice again. He hadn't used the Sharingan in any of the previous battles. He was about to experience the power of Sharingan in battle for the first time. With Sharingan's insight, Yuta felt that Izumi's moves were slowed down and turned into slow motion. Of course, this was just an illusion. This was so that the brain could have more time to deal with the Sharingan's improved insight. Yuta easily pushed aside the punch from Izumi, and he punched her in the opposite direction. Seeing that his fist was getting closer and closer to Izumi's eye socket, and the other party hadn't responded yet, Yuta felt bad for a while. Oops. However, the brain didn't have time to react, and the fist couldn't stop, and a punch hit Izumi's left eye. What? A crisp cry of pain sounded. Chapter 3, Ninjutsus Without Hand Signs. I was wrong. I was wrong. I'll treat you to 3 rice balls later. Yuta apologized while putting the ice towel that was prepared earlier on Izumi's eye. Izumi hummed in dissatisfaction, and she felt depressed for a while. She had clearly prepared it for Yuta before, but it was used on herself in the end. Is the improvement after awakening the Sharingan so great? Just now, mainly because I haven't adapted to the improvement in insight after awakening the Sharingan, my brain could react, but my body couldn't. Yuta explained while thinking. And the way to solve this problem is also very simple. Just get used to it gradually in the battle. In order to graduate early, he needs to adapt to his current strength as soon as possible. For this, he will still need to trouble Izumi to practice with himself on a daily basis. Thinking like this, Yuta said his request to Izumi. Why do you always think about improving your strength? Izumi asked curiously. Yuta usually pulls her to practice when he has time, and his daily training routine is also very serious and hard. He seems to be very eager for strength. If I don't get stronger, how can I protect you, uncle and aunt? Yuta said with a firm look in his eyes. In the original book, Izumi was the only female friend that Itachi had a good relationship with. But even so, she was killed on the night of the genocide. At that time, Obito did not need to take action on the night of the genocide. The one who took action and killed Izumi's family was Itachi. Izumi didn't know what Yuta was thinking. Her face turned slightly red, and she hummed softly, I don't need your protection. I will try my best to protect my parents. But recalling what happened on the Nine Tails night, Izumi felt a little scared in her heart. Fortunately, Yuta had taken her family away from home that night, and they happened to be near a shelter when Nine Tails appeared in the village. When she returned home the next day, she found that her home had been crushed by the boulders that Nine Tails had knocked away. If it weren't for Yuta, someone might be missing in her family now. I plan to get familiar with the improvement in my strength as soon as possible, and then apply for an early graduation. After thinking about it in his heart, Yuta said. Izumi was stunned for a moment, then said reluctantly, why? Even if he wants to become stronger, he doesn't need to be so anxious, right? She was still thinking about spending 6 years at the ninja school with Yuta. Yuta didn't say anything about the night of the extermination, but instead said, after getting familiar with the Sharingan, the teachers at the ninja school will have a hard time teaching me anything. Only by graduating as soon as possible and then getting a Jonin's guidance can I become stronger as soon as possible. For example, Itachi, whose father was the clan leader, and Shisui, who was his teacher and friend, had taught him since childhood. And look at Yuta, his parents died early, and neither of Izumi's parents were ninjas. Usually, he only had a little girl like Izumi to ask for guidance. He didn't want to waste 6 years at the ninja school like Sasuke, and only become a genin at the age of 12. 12-year-old Itachi was almost an Umbu sub-captain. All right. Izumi didn't ask any more questions. She touched the towel in her eye sockets. Her face was filled with grief and anger, and she spoke in a very determined tone, I'll try my best to help you get used to your current strength. However, in terms of ninjutsu, it's not that easy to graduate early, right? To graduate from ninja school normally, one only needs to master the 3 basic techniques. But if you want to graduate early at the age of 7, there may be higher requirements. Ninjutsu. Yuta's heart moved. After getting the talent of Indra, he hadn't had time to check his progress in the ninjutsu department. The 3 basic techniques are naturally not a problem. But what about elemental ninjutsus? Such as the Uchiha clan's signature fire release, Great Fireball technique. Ninjas of the Uchiha clan can apply to learn the Great Fireball technique after becoming a genin. That's the advantage of being part of a big clan. A ninja born in a civilian family has no ninjutsu resources to learn even if they want to learn some ninjutsu. But although he got the scroll of the Great Fireball technique, Yuta has not been able to really display the full power of the Great Fireball technique. At most, he can only spew a small flame. But now with the bonus of Indra's bloodline talent, the situation should be different, right? Yuta stood up, and walked to the middle of the yard. He recalled the chakra flow and the hand seals of the Great Fireball technique with anticipation in his heart, and slowly made the hand signs. Serpent, ram, monkey, boar, ori, tiger. Fire release, Great Fireball technique. Boom. A fiery chakra surged up from his throat and spewed out, forming a huge fireball. It worked. The light of the fire reflected on his face. Yuta was excited, but he felt that something was wrong. You can use it. Izumi was a little surprised, but she was very happy for Yuta. Not only can he use it, but it looked like he could even use it effortlessly. Is the improvement really that big after awakening the Sharingan? Izumi couldn't help but think so. Even if she didn't care much about the improvement of her strength, she was a little envious at this moment. She just wanted to celebrate with Yuta, but she saw the latter standing in the yard, frowning, wondering what he was thinking. He didn't know why, but Yuta felt that the ninjutsu just now seemed a bit redundant. Right, the hand signs. Suddenly, Yuta recalled one thing: the system of hand signs seemed to have been created by Indra. He did that in order to make it easier for people to use ninjutsu. In other words, the hand signs are just a means of assisting in chakra control. On the scroll containing the Great Fireball technique, there is not only the hand seals, but also the direction of chakra flow in various acupoints and meridians. So, as long as the level of chakra control is sufficient, there is no need for unnecessary things like hand seals. Thinking of this, Yuta immediately started to try it. He mobilized the chakra in his body again, but this time he didn't make any hand signs. He just put his fingers together in front of his mouth. Fire release, Great Fireball technique. With a bang, a fireball that was exactly the same size as before suddenly appeared. As the creator of the hand sign system, Indra does not need hand signs to use ninjutsu. And since Yuta had Indra's talent, naturally he could do it too. How did you do it? Izumi was completely stunned. She could hardly believe her eyes. Just now, Yuta used the Great Fireball technique without making a hand sign. A high-level ninja doesn't need hand signs to use a ninjutsu. Yuta said seriously. From today, he can also be regarded as a high-level ninja. Comment. 3. Comment. Vote. Chapter 4, Actual Combat Assessment. Time flew, and more than a month passed in a flash. During this period of time, Yuta took Izumi's help to practice almost every day. And every time he thrashed Izumi to the point where she couldn't stop complaining. At the same time, his mastery of Sharingan's insight also rapidly improved. From the initial incoordination of the brain and the body, to the ability to easily predict the opponent's next movements. Now, it basically only takes him 1 or 2 moves to restrain Izumi without injury. Such an improvement made Yuta feel a burst of emotion in his heart. The words of the past are indeed true. Genius is 1% talent and 99% hard work, but that 1% talent is often more important than 99% hard work. Before he used to practice more seriously than Izumi, but he was still no match for Izumi. Now with Indra's talent, the situation had been completely reversed. In the past month or so, Yuta's comprehensive strength has also increased from genin, weak, when he first got Indra's bloodline, to genin, strong. After a short while, his comprehensive strength will soon reach the level of Chunin. At that time, the system will analyze another talent. Thinking of this, Yuta was full of expectations for the future. But with the improvement of his strength, the effect of his training against Izumi also declined rapidly. How can he improve by practicing with a person that he can subdue with 1 or 2 moves? Well, Izumi can't satisfy him now, so he needs to go outside to find someone else. Preferably a jonin. Everyone gather on the practice ground. Today we will have a practical assessment. In the ninja school, Tamura from Yuta's class said. It was done once last semester, and everyone should remember that in the actual combat assessment, all means such as ninjutsu, taijutsu, genjutsu, shurikenjutsu, poison, etc. are allowed. The results of the actual combat assessment will account for a considerable proportion of your grades in this academic year. I hope everyone will take it seriously. At ninja school, there is an actual combat assessment every semester. Students are allowed to use all kinds of dangerous means, and several Chunin teachers monitor them to prevent accidents. Here we go again. It's annoying, it's an actual combat assessment again. Anyway, the first place must be Itachi, what else is there to compare? A group of 7 or 8-year-old kids began making a fuss. In the actual combat assessment last semester, Itachi won the first place with his absolutely overwhelming strength. And Itachi's last opponent, who was the second in the actual combat assessment, couldn't even last a few moves at all, and was easily defeated. Yuta was thinking in his heart as he walked towards the practice ground. He was not sure how his current strength compared to Itachi. When it comes to talent, he is not inferior to Itachi and is even much better than him now. But the other party has Uchiha Shisui as a daily guide. He was not very clear about Itachi's strength at this time. In the actual combat assessment last semester, the second-place student was not able to force out Itachi's true strength. What's more, that was already last semester. And after an entire semester, Itachi's strength had surely improved by a lot. The examination begins. Soon it was Yuta's turn to fight. Uchiha Yuta vs Takakura Ken. Tamura shouted. A person whose name didn't ring any bells in Yuta's heart was called up. He was probably a character who had not appeared in the original work. With no effort at all, Yuta easily defeated the other party in seconds. His strength has improved by a lot, Tamura said with approval. In his impression, Yuta usually practiced very hard, but his grades were not the best. This time, he was able to deal with his opponent in an almost instant fashion. It could be seen that his strength had improved by a lot recently. The other side. Under the shade of the trees around the practice field, Itachi watched everything on the field with a bored expression. He went up from time to compete, and it was very easy for him to deal with these level of opponents. How boring. In the clan, the arrogant clansman complained about the village every day, and in the school he had to play a boring ninja game with a group of childish students. Rather than wasting time here, he might as well practice with Shisui. Sure enough, it's better to let a shadow clone go to school instead as usual. Today, because of the actual combat assessment, he had decided to come in person. Although he looked down on the strength of his peers, he did not care too much, so he chose to come over. Looking around, Itachi set his eyes on Yuta. Uchiha Yuta. Recalling the name, Itachi felt no ups and downs in his heart. Although they were both members of the Uchiha clan, in his heart he was no different from the others. The two had nothing to do with each other. The other party usually hung out with a little girl of the same Uchiha clan named Uchiha Izumi. As for strength, well, he didn't have an impression. To be precise, he didn't care much about the strength of everyone in the class. There wasn't even a single person who could interest him a little. It's so boring. With another sigh in his heart, Itachi raised his hand to cover the sunlight shining through the pores of the green leaves. If it is still easy to get the first place this time, should I apply for an early graduation? On the field. Inuzuka Hana vs Uchiha Yuta. A little girl walked to the stage. It's a pity that you have met me now. It seems that your test results will not be very good this time. Inuzuka Hana said confidently. She has good grades in all aspects and is at the top of her class. Yuta's usual grades are only at the upper middle level. This is something that can be achieved with just daily hard work. It can be seen that the talent of the other party can only be said to be mediocre. Yuta walked to the stage without saying a word. Inuzuka Hana. It seemed that he had some impression of her. Wasn't she the sister of Inuzuka Kiba of the Konoha 12? Forget it, she's not an important person anyway. After simply forming a seal of opposition, Hana lowered her head slightly and charged forward with a great momentum. She used her claw to grab Yuta, but suddenly a flower appeared in front of her. The figure in front of her disappeared, and she was pushed on the back, and her body staggered forward, almost falling. So fast. Tamura's eyes lit up. Hana's speed was already very fast, but Yuta's speed was even faster. He easily dodged and appeared behind the former. He thought Yuta's strength had improved a lot compared to before, and he was right. However, soon, Tamura found that he was still being conservative. He saw that Hana couldn't make a single blow. She was serious, but she was not a match for Yuta at all. On the premise that the latter could only defend and not attack, she was quickly defeated. The winner, Uchiha Yuta. Seeing that Hana had given up her resistance in despair, Tamura simply announced. Among the students below, there was a little commotion. Many people were a little surprised to see Yuta, whose grades were not particularly outstanding, beat the top students who were at the top of the class. The battle continued quickly. Before long, there were only two people left. The last match, Uchiha Itachi, against Uchiha Yuta. Chapter 5, Yuta vs Itachi. The second place is actually Yuta. Yuta's strength has increased so much. Sure enough, Itachi will still be the first, there really is no surprise. The first and second are both from the Uchiha clan, which is really enviable. There was a murmur among the students watching the battle. Regarding the first place, basically everyone had no dispute. Since Itachi had won the first place with absolute strength in the actual combat assessment last semester, the status of this year's chief student had not been controversial. What everyone was curious about was who could compete for the second place and how they would fare against Itachi. But no matter what they had guessed, they hadn't expected that the one who would reach the end would not be the top performers in the class, but Uchiha Yuta, who was not particularly conspicuous. Seeing the discussions of the students, Tamura showed a satisfied smile on his face. I told you a long time ago that only hard work will never fail you. As long as you practice seriously like Yuta, your strength will definitely improve. However, the students didn't care. Even though Yuta's strength has improved a lot, he still can't match Itachi. I wonder how long Yuta can hold on against Itachi. 3 minutes? Or 5 minutes? You look down on Yuta too much, don't you? The second place in the last semester was defeated by Itachi in less than 2 minutes. I bet Yuta will be defeated by Itachi in 1 minute. Ignoring the discussions of his peers at this time, Yuta quietly walked to the stage. As Itachi came to the stage, a bunch of little fans below bursted out with a frenzy of cheers. On the other hand, at Yuta's side, besides Izumi, only some boys who usually didn't like Itachi cheered him on. Your strength seems to have improved very quickly recently, Itachi said. Regarding Yuta's achievements, he had heard the comments from others. It's all thanks to you. Yuta's expression was a little weird, and he said something that Itachi didn't understand. If it weren't for knowing that Itachi would exterminate the clan in the future, would he be so anxious to improve his strength? On the night of the genocide, if he is not strong enough, he and Izumi, as well as Izumi's parents, will be slashed with a sword, and then Obito or Danzo will poach their Sharingan. With a serious expression, he made the seal of opposition, and the battle soon began. The figures of the two quickly disappeared. They collided and quickly separated. For a while, the arena was full of the sound of fists colliding. Tamura's expression changed from dull at first, to serious, and then dignified again. The high-speed physical battle on the field lasted for more than 5 minutes, but the two still had no intention of stopping. It turns out that Itachi is so strong when he fights seriously. And Yuta. Tamura recalled his previous judgment and couldn't help but be speechless. How much has this child's strength improved recently? If it wasn't for the black pupils in Yuta's eyes, he would think that Yuta's strength had increased because he had awakened the Sharingan of the Uchiha clan. In all fairness, Tamura thought to himself that although he was a Chunin, if faced with the physical attack of either of the two at the moment, he would be in a lot of trouble. These two children, they're only 7-year-old students who have just entered the ninja school for a year, right? Monsters, they are really monsters. Seeing the fan emblem on the two students' clothes, Tamura once again sighed that they were indeed from the Uchiha clan. On the field, the two people who continued to fight with high-speed taijutsu retreated at this moment. Itachi gasped violently. At this moment, he was completely serious, and he became solemn. The strength of the other party was actually comparable to himself. Fortunately, he came himself. If a shadow clone had come instead, it would have probably already been blown up by the other party, right? Looking towards the opposite side, Itachi's eyes suddenly narrowed. Opposite him, although Yuta was also panting, his breathing was much lighter than his. I read that right. How could Yuta be able to fight Itachi for so long? Both of them move so fast, my eyes can't keep up. Damn. Only one Itachi was enough, but now there is another Yuta who can compete with Itachi. I'm afraid, they're not evenly matched. You see, it's clear that Itachi's panting is more intense. The students were suddenly startled and hurriedly looked towards the two on stage. Sure enough, they saw the two people panting for a while, but Yuta was obviously in a better state. How is this possible? Yuta is even stronger than Itachi. A group of people looked at each other, unable to believe the conclusion. They thought that Yuta's ability to climb up to the second place in the class was enough to surprise them, but they didn't expect that Yuta could achieve this level. On the field, Itachi barely calmed down and said seriously, "You're good. In terms of physique alone, if it weren't for me having more combat experience, I would have already lost." Having said that, Itachi became even more solemn in his heart. His own combat experience comes from the guidance of his father, and from the daily teaching of the renowned genius Shisui. And the other party does not have these resources. Under this premise, the other party can actually train his taijutsu to this level by himself, which is undoubtedly very impressive. But Itachi didn't feel much frustration in his heart. Everyone is good at something, and he doesn't need to be number one in everything. According to the strength characteristics of the opponent, analyzing the most suitable fighting method is also a kind of strength. The strength he possesses is not limited to taijutsu. After calming down, he took out several shuriken and threw them out in random directions. The shuriken in the air collided with each other, making a crisp sound. Accompanied by the exclamations of the surrounding students, their direction changed rapidly, attacking Yuta in the middle from all directions. Tamura's eyes moved, and while he was surprised, he was ready to go on the field to save Yuta. However, the next moment, he saw that Yuta also threw several shuriken, controlled the direction in the same way, and shot down the shuriken in the air. Tamura was stunned. This way of throwing shurikens, these two children, are both masters. This is something that even a Chunin like him can't do. Chapter 6, Applying for Early Graduation. On Itachi's side, seeing his shuriken being shot down, he was a little surprised, but he didn't think much of it. Taking advantage of the gap between Yuta's shurikens, he ran over and quickly formed seals with his hand. Serpent, ram, monkey, boar, horse, tiger. Taking a deep breath, his chest bulged. Fire release, great fireball technique. A fireball with a diameter of 3 or 4 meters completely blocked the vision between the two and speeded up in the direction of Yuta. There should be no way to avoid in this distance. Itachi thought to himself. The opponent's taijutsu and shuriken jutsu are not inferior to him. Even if he can rely on his ninjutsu to win in the end, for him, this match is considered a loss. He decided in his heart that after this battle, he would go to Shisui for special training. Tamura next to him didn't have time to be surprised by Itachi knowing elemental ninjutsu. Just as he was about to rescue Yuta, he saw that Yuta's left index finger and middle finger were closed together, and standing in front of his mouth. His hands weren't making any seals at all. But he directly spit out a huge great fireball. In terms of size, it was much larger than Itachi's great fireball. Almost at the exact moment when Itachi's hand seal was completed, Yuta displayed the great fireball technique at the same time. Itachi, who was thinking about whether to apply for an early graduation first or train with Shisui for a while, stared blankly at his fireball being dispersed. Then a fireball came from the opposite side, with the remaining power towards him. Boom. The scorching flames scorched his skin, and Tamura next to him changed his direction in an emergency, barely saving Itachi from the fireball. The medical ninja who had been on standby for a long time quickly stepped forward to treat Itachi's burned skin. The winner, Uchiha Yuta. Tamura announced with shock on his face. Actually, it was Yuta who won. Both of them have mastered fire release ninjutsu, damn it. Is there such a big gap between us? We are obviously the same age. Did you see that when Yuta used his ninjutsu just now, it seemed that there was no hand seal? How is that possible? You read it wrong. How can it be possible to use ninjutsu without a hand seal? The battle was going on too fast, plus most of the eyes were on Itachi, and there was a cover of flames. So, many people were not sure whether Yuta had made some hand seals when he had performed ninjutsu just now. But Tamura, as well as the other Chunin sensei around, could see clearly. This kid, who didn't use a hand seal just now, used the same great fireball technique as Itachi, and it was even stronger. On Itachi's side, he was being treated by a medical ninja, and his face was dazed. Lost. He actually lost. Taijutsu, shuriken jutsu, ninjutsu, he had already used most of his methods, but he still lost. Looking back on his previous inner activities, he felt a little ridiculous, and at the same time, his heart was a little tingling. Looking up at Yuta, the other party seemed to be looking at him as well. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but Itachi felt that he seemed to see an emotion called disappointment in the eyes of the other party. In an instant, Itachi's heart stung deeper, and he couldn't help clenching his fists, but he was reprimanded by the medical ninja beside him. Yuta took his eyes away from Itachi, and seeing that the other party was not in a good state at the moment, he didn't make the seal of reconciliation. Instead, he reached out and touched his eye socket. He won without relying on the Sharingan. He also has his own pride in his heart. Since Itachi hasn't awakened his Sharingan yet, he didn't want to use his Sharingan in battle at all. However, since he won in this way, then there really isn't much to learn at the ninja school. Tamura-sensei, I want to apply for early graduation. Yuta said calmly. Fine, but I can't control this kind of thing, I need to report it to Lord Hokage first. Tamura was not too surprised by this. The strength that Yuta had shown before was already at the level of a genin. If the other party continues to stay in the ninja school, he will have nothing to teach him. Not only Yuta but also Itachi. Although Itachi lost, in his opinion, he also had the ability to apply for early graduation. Who? Tamura let out a long sigh. This year, he really had two geniuses in his class. Hokage Building. Third Hokage Sarutobi Huruzen received 2 applications for early graduation from ninja school. That's right, 2. Itachi also applied to graduate early. After losing to Yuta, his inner thoughts of quickly graduating were instead strengthened. He didn't want to waste any more time at ninja school. Participating in those boring games between children wouldn't do anything to improve his strength. Uchiha Itachi, the son of Uchiha Fugaku, the head of the Uchiha clan, has been the first in all aspects since he entered the school. He has excellent taijutsu, excellent shurikenjutsu, and has even successfully learned a C-rank fire release ninjutsu. Uchiha Yuta, whose parents died in battle, only has a good grade in the ninja school, but he has always worked hard in training. In the previous actual combat assessment, he showed excellent taijutsu and shurikenjutsu. He has also mastered the Great Fireball technique. Even, he can use the Great Fireball technique without hand seals. Sarutobi Huruzen stared at one of the applications and muttered to himself. This was confirmed by several Chunin teachers who were present at the time. Mastery of fire release. The Uchiha clan have 2 geniuses. Sarutobi Huruzen sighed, and flipped through the other 2 documents. Those were 2 exam papers, which contained questions from the previous exam of the ninja school. The question was to write out their own understanding of a ninja and the will of fire. The central idea of Itachi was that ninjas are people who can endure, and ninjas should carry their missions with the utmost importance for the sake of the village and for the sake of peace. The central idea of Yuta's answer was that ninjas are people who have mastered a power that is beyond the grasp of ordinary people, and this power should be used to protect family, partners, and friends. Sarutobi Huruzen's carefully judged the answer of the 2. The latter's answer was a bit narrow, and not like the former. Beyond the limitations of himself and his family, his understanding of the will of fire was not enough. Thinking of this, Sarutobi Huruzen couldn't help but have a headache. In his opinion, Yuta should stay at the ninja school and receive more education on the will of fire. On the contrary, Itachi, who lost in the actual test, should be allowed to graduate early. But how can he allow the second place to graduate and force the first place to stay in school? After thinking for a moment, Sarutobi Huruzen had an idea. Go ahead and arrange 2 assessments later. If they pass, they will be allowed to graduate early. Chapter 7, Graduation Assessment. The summer sun shines on the ninja school, making it unbearably hot. But at this moment, a group of people in the ninja school were in a more restless mood. A group of people with different costumes, but basically all wearing the family emblem of a fan, were walking towards the practice ground of the ninja school. Previously, they all had heard that 2 first-year students of their family had applied for early graduation at the same time. There were 2 geniuses in the family, so naturally everyone was happy. After hearing that there would be a special graduation assessment today, a group of people came to watch it. Itachi from the clan leader's family, and there is another one as well, is it named Yuta? He is planning to graduate at the age of 7. 2 geniuses like Shisui have emerged. Itachi often trains with Shisui. It's normal to be stronger. It's that kid named Yuta that surprised me. I heard that he had defeated Itachi in the actual combat test. The Uchiha clansmen were naturally familiar with the eldest son of their clan leader. They also knew that despite the other party's young age, he had already learned the Great Fireball technique after watching his father perform it once. As an orphan, Yuta was mostly unknown. Little Yuta usually practices very hard. A gentle voice, with some unconvincing tone sounded. It was Azumi's mother, Uchiha Hazuki. Because Yuta's parents had died early, Izumi's parents acted as Yuta's guardians. In the middle of the crowd, Uchiha Fugaku, who was mostly expressionless, said, "Yuta did beat Itachi. Both of them have learned the great fireball technique, and it is said that Yuta even performed it without making a hand seal." Whoa! There was a sudden uproar in the crowd. Using the great fireball technique without a hand seal. At this moment, the Uchiha clansmen tried to use the great fireball technique without hand seals on the spot, but at most a small flame was sprayed out, causing a burst of laughter. This level of fire release cannot be applied in battle at all. A jonin from a police unit next to Uchiha Fugaku also spoke up, "Speaking of which, I've tried to use ninjutsu without hand seals before, but I couldn't do it at all." Me too. Except for the special ninjutsu called Raiznan developed by the 4th Hokage, I have basically never heard of any ninjutsu that does not need a hand seal. I don't know how that kid did it, but it's amazing. While walking and talking, a group of people quickly arrived at the exercise field. Almost all the students and teachers of the ninja school had arrived. Sitting right in front of the practice ground was 3rd Hokage Sarutobi Huruzen. Seeing the arrival of Uchiha Fugaku and others, Sarutobi Huruzen said hello and congratulated him. And 2 genins were standing beside Sarutobi Huruzen. One of them was more relaxed, while the other was a lot more serious. Sarutobi Aoki's eyes swept across Yuta not far away from time to time, recalling what the head of the family and Lord Hokage had previously explained to him. In the subsequent assessment, he would have to face Yuta. And Sarutobi Huruzen asked him to go all out, and let Yuta fail the test. This would give Sarutobi Huruzen a reason to force Yuta to stay at the ninja school to receive a few more years of education on the will of fire. With a special task in hand, he reluctantly became serious. But he would most likely not have to go all out. After all, in Sarutobi Aoki's view, his opponent was just a 7-year-old child. Even if his talent is top tier and he is very strong, how can he be stronger than him? He has already become strong enough to prepare for the Chunin exam, can he still be unable to deal with a child? What a joke! Even against a real Chunin, he has the power to fight. In the shade of 2 trees. Yuta and Itachi closed their eyes to rest, turning a deaf ear to the restlessness beside them, waiting for the next battle. The students on the other side were very excited and made a lot of gossip. It was as if they were the ones who were graduating early. Damn! These 2 guys are so cool, I want to be like them as well. Even though there are only 1st graders, they want to graduate early. We 4th graders don't even dare to think about such a thing. Are the 2 of them nervous? They may be worrying about making mistakes later. Nonsense. Yuta and Itachi are so powerful, how could they be nervous? Looking at Yuta now, he's so handsome, why didn't I notice it before? You usually only have Itachi in your eyes, nympho. Yuta is mine. Izumi, who was also in the crowd, moved her eyes. She glanced at the crowd with alertness, and her brain was beeping like an antenna. Who is talking about Yuta? After seeing a few girls in the same class talking about Yuta, Izumi's little face became a little resentful. Nymphomaniacs. After seeing that Yuta and Itachi's guardians had arrived, Tamura came out and announced, Lord Hokage has accepted Yuta and Itachi's graduation applications, but they still need to pass the assessment. Lord Hokage has always taken geniuses seriously, but geniuses also need to be protected from premature death. So, Yuta, Itachi, you 2 need to fight against 2 genins. As long as you can last 10 minutes without losing, you will pass the test and graduate to become a genin. In response, Yuta turned his eyes to the 2 genins who came out from the opposite side. One was a little more relaxed, while the other was a little more serious. The latter looked much stronger. He wondered who his opponent would be. But it didn't matter who he had to face. He took a look at his system panel. Comprehensive strength, genin, strong. Sharingan pupil power, LV1, 35/50ths. Chakra, LV1, 45/50ths. LV1 of chakra should correspond to the chakra amount of a genin ninja. As far as the amount of chakra is concerned, he is already close to Chunin. Coupled with his Sharingan and great fireball technique, it should be no problem to deal with a genin and only fight for 10 minutes. Chapter 8, Different Treatment. The first to be assessed was Itachi. Come on, Itachi. A smile appeared on Uchiha Fugaku's face, and he encouraged Itachi. Sarutobi Huruzen on the other side also gave Itachi a gentle look. Itachi nodded earnestly. Lord Hokage, and his father, were watching him. He can't lose this game. The young genin across from him, who had just stepped onto the stage, couldn't help but be startled. Why does this kid seem to suddenly have an intense fighting spirit? Shaking his head, he stopped thinking about it. After all, he was a genin who had graduated 2 years ago. And the other party was just a first-year kid at a ninja school. Even if his talent is good, what can he do at such a young age? Itachi's eyes narrowed, and he held a few shurikens in his hand, and used his extremely skillful shuriken jutsu. What a beautiful technique of throwing shurikens. An astonishing look flashed in the young genin's eyes, and he casually knocked off the shurikens flying towards him with a kunai. However, don't underestimate a genin. However, when he knocked out the last shuriken, he discovered that there was a small ball tied to it. What is this? Before he had time to think, the small ball exploded with a bang, and a burst of purple smoke enveloped him. Seeing that the smoke bomb was successfully used, Itachi quickly made a hand seal. A clone was formed with a bang, and it rushed directly into the smoke. If that smoke is poisonous, that guy has already lost. It's naive to think that such a boring trick as the clone technique can do the job. No, look carefully, it's a shadow clone. Suddenly startled, many Uchihas quickly activated their Sharingan. They carefully observed and distinguished, and confirmed that Itachi had indeed made a real shadow clone. The clone technique taught by the ninja school only has a form but no substance. Anyone with a little combat experience will not be deceived by a mere clone. But shadow clone is different, and it is very useful in battle. Just look at the ranks of the two ninjutsus. One is E rank and one is B rank. This child Itachi has actually learned the shadow clone technique. Did Shisui teach him? It's too messy. Although Fugaka said this, he still had a smile on his face. After all, even a Chunin may not be able to use the shadow clone technique, but his 7-year-old son was already pretty proficient in it. How can this not make him happy as a father? Sarutobi Huruzen looked at the bunch of scarlet eyes on this side, and frowned secretly. The power of the Uchiha clan is too strong. Looking at Itachi, who was already pressing down on his opponent, and Yuta beside him, he felt even more worried in his heart. Not only is their strength strong, but they also have excellent descendants. After a short while, Tamura walked into the field and shouted loudly, 10 minutes are up, the battle is over. Itachi backed away regretfully. If he could be given a little more time, he would have been able to beat the opponent. On the other hand, the young genin looked aggrieved at the moment. He even needed to be thankful that this assessment had a time limit. Otherwise, it would be too embarrassing to be defeated on the spot by a 7-year-old child. Obviously his age, strength, and speed are greater the opponent, and his experience is also not bad, but he was still directly pressed and beaten by the other party. He could only barely parry with his stronger strength and combat experience. Seeing the end of the battle, Sarutobi Huruzen suppressed the many thoughts in his heart. He got up, and with a kind smile on his face, he personally handed the forehead protector to Itachi, who was moved and at a loss. Tamura congratulated with envy, Itachi, congratulations on becoming a genin. At the age of 7, Itachi graduated early as a first year in ninja school. Without needing to think about it, Tamura knew that this matter would spread to Konoha after today. And what made him even more envious was that Itachi had even learned the shadow clone technique, a B-rank ninjutsu that even he had failed to successfully learn. In the previous battle between Itachi and Yuta, Itachi was defeated by Yuta's fire release and he didn't even have the chance to use the shadow clone technique. This was also because Itachi had underestimated Yuta's strength. If he had gone all out from the beginning, the outcome would be unknown. The next test was about to start. Yuta walked up to the stage without saying a word, and looked at the ninja opposite, who had become even more serious than before. After seeing the battle just now, Sarutobi Aoki took a more serious attitude. He believed that his strength is higher than that of the previous genin, and he could also defeat that genin easily. But after seeing Itachi's strength, he naturally wouldn't underestimate Yuta, who could defeat Itachi. Although he didn't think he would be crushed and beaten like the men before, he still had to fulfill the task handed by his own clan leader. It was necessary to defeat the other party within 10 minutes, so that the other party couldn't pass the assessment. I'll say it first. Sarutobi Aoki said with a cold face, "I'll make a serious move next, so be mentally prepared. You two may have good talents, but you are still too young. The world of ninjas is much more cruel than you think. I advise you to stay in the ninja school for a few more years." Yuta held a kunai in front of him and looked at Aoki vigilantly. "Sorry, I still choose to graduate early." If he only relies on the natural growth of pupil power over time, he will not be able to have enough strength to protect himself and Izumi's family on the night of Uchiha's annihilation in the future. With a Jonin's guidance, he can not only improve his strength faster, but he can also get more talents through the system faster. TCH. The corner of Sarutobi Aoki's mouth twitched, and he scolded Yuta secretly in his heart, then he rushed forward. Clang! The kunais collided and let out a loud bang. Yuta's arms trembled slightly, and he frowned. In terms of pure strength, he was not a match for the other party. The other party's age was twice his own, and in terms of physical condition, he was still much worse than the other party. When he fought against Itachi in the past, Thaya was also the same case. He was obviously better in taijutsu skills and mastery of ninjutsu, but because of the other party's physical fitness and combat experience, he couldn't defeat the other party for a long time. Never mind. With my talent, I will sooner or later leave all these people in the dust. Thinking like this, Yuta tried his best to block Sarutobi Aoki, and started to fight him with taijutsu. At the same time, his eyes flashed red. This is not only Sarutobi Aoki, who was facing Yuta, but the Uchiha clansmen who were watching were also suddenly shocked. An idea popped up in their hearts, and their eyes turned to Yuta's eyes. Yuta's were scarlet, and one tomo was slowly rotating in his pupils. The ninjas of the Uchiha clan looked at each other in surprise. This kid has already awakened the Sharingan. How old is he? Chapter 9, Hold on for 10 minutes. Victory. It is indeed the Sharingan. Uchiha Fugaku activated his Sharingan, looked at it carefully, and said, "Whoa." At this time, not only the ninjas of the Uchiha clan, but everyone present was agitated. He awakened the Sharingan at just 7 years old. I did that when I was 12. Has anyone in the clan ever awakened their Sharingan so early? I haven't heard of it. Maybe there were before, but definitely not many. Looking at his appearance, he should have awakened his Sharingan a while ago. I saw Itachi's shadow clone before, and I thought Itachi lost a bit unfairly. Now it seems that Yuta didn't even use his Sharingan in the previous battle. Itachi's complexion became slightly pale. There was a sense of humiliation in his heart. The other party had clearly awakened his Sharingan, but he didn't use it to fight him before. What does it mean? On the other side, the students were also whispering. What is a Sharingan? It's the Uchiha clan's bloodline limit, that guy Yuta has awakened the Sharingan. So, Yuta's strength has improved so quickly because of this. Yes. No wonder Yuta suddenly became so powerful. Hearing this, the adults next to them were suddenly stunned. They knew about Yuta's usual grades before. Although he practiced very hard, his grades were only at the upper middle level. If it wasn't for the fact that he had suddenly defeated Itachi in the actual combat test, Yuta would have always been a little transparent in the Uchiha clan. Now that they heard the words of the children, they reacted. No wonder Yuta's strength had suddenly increased so much. It was because he had awakened his Sharingan. If you say that, maybe Itachi is stronger. Yes, Itachi is such a genius even without awakening his Sharingan, and his strength will be greatly improved when he awakens his Sharingan in the future. Wait until these two kids awaken their Sharingan and have a fight. I wonder how Yuta will perform then. On the contrary, some people valued Yuta more, and thought that Yuta awakening his Sharingan earlier was also a kind of strength. But more people still thought that Itachi, who had still not awakened his Sharingan, was more talented. Hearing these remarks, Itachi also had a fire in his heart. He had a sudden desire to awaken his Sharingan. Thirst for power. If he also awakened his Sharingan, Yuta shouldn't be his opponent, right? That's right. Thinking like this, Itachi regained his confidence. When he gets back, he will ask his father and Shisui on advice about how to awaken his Sharingan. The center of the battlefield. Yuta and Sarutobi Aoki were tightly entangled. Punches and kicks were thrown and received. Sarutobi Aoki felt irritated in his heart. It had been 3 minutes, and he still hadn't been able to defeat Yuta, and he hadn't even caused any damage to Yuta. Instead, Yuta successfully dealt some damage to him from time to time. He kept attacking with a heavy punch, but Yuta subtly avoided it in advance and counterattacked, but he repeatedly failed to respond. This Sharingan is such a cheat. Sarutobi Aoki was very angry and cursed inwardly. Sarutobi Aoki glanced at the head of his own clan. Sarutobi Huruzen was frowning slightly, as if he was a little dissatisfied with Aoki taking this long to defeat Yuta. Aoki was out of breath for a while. He pulled away, and quickly formed a hand seal. Fire release, flame bomb. However, the flame had just been spit out when he saw a larger fireball on the opposite side already rushing towards him. Damn it. In a hurry, he had forgotten that Yuta also knew fire release, and he could even use it without hand seals. Aoki jumped away from the great fireball's attack range, and was about to attack again. But when he saw Yuta on the opposite side, he realized that he was in big trouble. He became ready to move in another direction to retreat when he saw Yuta use the great fireball technique again. But Yuta's attack was unavoidable for him. The fireball hit him head-on. He coughed violently in a puff of smoke. His arm was burned by the flames and he felt a sharp pain. He jumped out of the smoke, but then he saw a few shurikens swish through the smoke and hit him directly. Fuck. Aoki cursed inwardly. He was obviously in the smoke, so how did the other party determine his position? Raising his painful arm, he managed to knock down a few shurikens. He was watching the front when suddenly a swish sounded behind him. He was kicked on the back and he staggered forward. A small palm grabbed his arm, turned it over and pressed it behind him. Then a kunai was pressed on his neck in front of him. You lose. A dull voice came from behind. After the smoke cleared, Aoki was still stunned and motionless. He lost. It's been less than 5 minutes since the battle started. The outcome has been determined, and the assessment is over. Tamura's voice brought his mind back. The pain in the arm was transmitted to the brain again, and he screamed in pain. The medical ninja on the side rushed forward. Aoki looked at Yuta and opened his mouth, but he didn't know what to say. Whoa. The crowd watching around fell silent for a long time. Then, as if a boulder had fallen into a calm lake, the crowd exploded at once. Win. Didn't he just need to hold on for 10 minutes? Who noticed how much time has passed? It should be less than 5 minutes. 5 minutes. A group of people were speechless. Before, in Itachi's fight, they thought Itachi's performance was already good enough. A first-year student at a ninja school, a 7-year-old child, was winning against a genin who had graduated 2 years ago from beginning to end. However, Yuta was even more exaggerated. Against a significantly stronger opponent, he not only won, but also won so fast. Even they, who were watching the battle, couldn't react. How did he win just now? Someone spoke in confusion. He only saw that both of them used ninjutsu. Yuta used fire release twice, and then that genin was in smoke all the time. It wasn't until the smoke cleared just now that he realized that the battle was over. How it ended was completely unclear to him. Fugaku considered for a moment and said, there are 2 main reasons for Yuta winning so quickly. First, his ninjutsu does not require a hand seal, and can be performed in an instant, so he can catch the opponent by surprise. Secondly, he has awakened the Sharingan, which gives him the capital to use taijutsu to fight. And after using the first great fireball, he can also rely on Sharingan to predict the opponent's position and accurately use the second great fireball. As for using shuriken to confirm the opponent's position in the smoke, it also relies on Sharingan's insight. In the end, he seizes this opportunity and defeated his opponent in one fell swoop. Having said that, Fugaku looked appreciative and summed up, overall, a good tactic, although simple, but it gave full play to his own advantages. The others slowly pondered and understood Yuta's tactics, and nodded in a complicated mood. His tactics were not complicated. But Sharingan and fire release ninjutsu were the most important in his strategy. He originally just needed to last 10 minutes to pass, but they didn't expect that this kid would defeat his opponent directly. Chapter 10, Becoming a Genin. Sarutobi Huruzen looked at Yuta, whose face was calm and expressionless even after the victory, and he sighed in his heart. He originally wanted to let Yuta study for a few more years at the ninja school to increase his understanding of the will of fire. In Sarutobi Huruzen's view, from Yuta's answers in past exams, it could be seen that he was more like most Uchihas. Compared with the village, he considered his family more important. And Itachi, on the other hand, was more like Shisui, and had a wider field of vision. After all, Itachi was taught by Shisui on a daily basis. It was normal for him to be more like Shisui. For an Uchiha like Itachi, he could allow them to graduate early. But for Uchihas like Yuta, he still needed to educate them more, so that they could be used by him in the village. But it was a good plan, but in the end it failed because of his misjudgment of Yuta's strength. Relying on his mastery of gyre release ninjutsu, plus Sharingan, Yuta actually easily defeated an excellent senior genin. Forget it, it doesn't matter. Later, Yuta can be guided by the will of fire in other ways. A jonin will be assigned to guide Yuta later, and some arrangements can be made on this. Standing up, and arranging his expression, Sarutobi Huruzen walked towards Yuta with a warm face. He stretched out his hand and handed the ninja forehead protector to him, exhorting him in a hopeful tone. Yuta endured the discomfort in his heart and responded one by one. Why would he, a transmigrator, believe in the will of fire? What's more, it's Sarutobi Huruzen who said that. Is he so stupid as to believe his bullshit? After enduring for a long time, Sarutobi Huruzen finally stopped talking and left. Immediately afterwards, Izumi, Hazuki, and Tamura came to congratulate him on becoming a genin. Oh, I'll be the only one going to school in the future. Izumi's face revealed reluctance, but there was a look of relief on her face as well. She was reluctant because Yuta won't go to school with her after becoming a genin. And she was relieved because Yuta had finally graduated, and there was no need for him to drag her to practice together every day. Although with Yuta's proficiency of Sharingan, he will no longer accidentally hit her. It's not fun to be easily beat up every time they practice. However, her strength has increased rapidly due to this. In the previous actual combat assessment, Izumi's performance had also improved a lot. Boom. Feeling a finger flick on het forehead, Izumi covered her forehead with tears in her eyes. She glared at Yuta, the culprit. Yuta didn't care at all, and he tapped Izumi's forehead. Don't think that you will be free when I am gone. I will also often make time to train you in the future. Now that both Itachi and I have graduated, you must strive to be the first in your class. I object. Invalid objection. Izumi's talent was good, and it needed to be carefully tuned. At least, he had to let Izumi have enough strength to protect herself. Hazuki smiled and watched the two children fight. Aside, Fugaku also came over. While taking out a lot of scrolls, he said, "First of all, congratulations on your graduation as a genin. These are the ninjutsus and genjutsus that you can apply to learn after becoming a genin. I will give them to you directly now. I thought that even if you failed the assessment, I would give it to you directly. But I didn't expect you to not only pass, but also win so easily." Yuta took over the scroll while thanking him and looked at it briefly. Flame Bullet Technique, Fire Dragon Flame Bullet Technique, Phoenix Fire Technique. They were all fire release ninjutsu which were commonly used by the Uchiha clan. Basically, except for the ninjutsu of very high level, all of them were here. In addition, he also saw a pile of genjutsu scrolls, Sly Mind Effect Technique, Hell Viewing Technique, False Surroundings Technique. The Shadow Clone Technique was also included. The students and teachers of the ninja school on the side were full of envy. This was the advantage of being born in the great ninja clan. As long as you have enough talent, you will never lack ninjutsu. Before, when Yuta was only a student at the ninja school, he could only apply for the great fireball technique from the clan. Once you become a genin, you will be able to apply for a lot of ninjutsu and genjutsu techniques. These are the things to learn for the genin period. If you are proficient with these things, you can basically have the strength of an elite Chunin. After becoming a Chunin, the clan will give you access to all regular ninjutsus. If you want to learn other types of ninjutsu, the Uchiha clan also has them. A Sharingan wielder can easily copy ninjutsu. The most indispensable thing in the Uchiha family is ninjutsu. Fugaku continued, "One more thing, the village will arrange jonin to guide you in your daily practice. The clan will also arrange a jonin to guide you, but most of the jonin in the clan work in the police force, and there is no way to provide daily guidance. Saying that, Fugaku said to a young man with medium-length hair beside him, "Tekka, I'll leave it to you." "No problem." Uchiha Tekka nodded confidently, "You can come to me for any training-related matters in the future. As long as I have time, I will assist you." Tekka had the position of an officer in the police force, and it was impossible for him to give instructions daily like a normal jonin. Yuta nodded, and felt the benefits of being born in a great ninja clan again in his heart. He said, "In the future, please give me more advice, Senior Tekka." Hokage Building. Sarutobi Huruzen and Shimura Danzo sat opposite each other. "I heard that Uchiha's 2 7-year-olds have graduated early to become a genin." Danzo opened his squinted eyes as he spoke. "And one of them has even awakened the Sharingan." "That's right," Sarutobi Huruzen said while flipping through the list of jonins in his hand. "I wonder how you're going to arrange a jonin for them." Danzo tried to see it directly. Sarutobi Huruzen was also a little worried and clenched a pipe in his mouth. 2 children had graduated early at the age of 7 at the same time, and they could only be in the same class as older people. Also, there are not enough people to form a genin team. What's more, both of them are Uchiha. They need to be guided by the will of fire. In this case, it is important to choose a suitable jonin. That jonin should have the village in their heart and they must believe in the will of fire. Uchiha Itachi can join Jonin Mizuki's class, there is just one person missing. As for Uchiha Yuta, or you can send a jonin from the root to guide him. Danzo said. Sarutobi Huruzen glanced at Danzo and said indifferently, "As long as the Uchiha CLA agrees, you can try." "Do you have any idea about Shimura Danzo's reputation in the Uchiha clan? If Yuta's mentor jonin is a root ninja, the Uchiha will never agree to it." Danzo also knew this, and he had just said it casually before. But although it is impossible to dispatch a root jonin to guide Yuta, it does not prevent him from making contact with the other party at a suitable time. If he can attract the other party to join the root to work for him, the Uchiha clan will have nothing to say. He could feel that Yuta and Itachi, despite their different personalities, both shared the same desire for power. This desire will produce darkness, and they have a possibility of joining the root. "Which jonin are you planning to arrange for Uchiha Yuta?" Danzo asked curiously. Sarutobi Huruzen struggled for a long time and handed over a profile of a ninja. Seeing a figure in a green tights above the portrait, Danzo couldn't help twitching the corners of his mouth. This guy is someone the root would not want. Chapter 11, Young Guy. "Hello, I'm Might Guy, and I'll be your mentor jonin from today." Wearing green tights, Might Guy revealed his white teeth, showed a thumbs up, and said with a grin. Yuta's expression was sluggish for a moment, but he quickly reacted and greeted, "Mr. Guy, please give me more advice in the future." Yuta didn't expect his mentor jonin to be Might Guy, a man who was honored as King Guy in his previous life. The person who succeeded in tearing a hole in the iron barrier formed by bloodline limits in the Naruto world through hard work day after day. Yuta looked at the person in front of him. The current Might Guy is only 16 years old, and has just become a jonin. His current strength is nowhere near that of during the Fourth Ninja World War. Ahem. Although I'm not very old, I still have some experience in taijutsu. I am totally fit to give you pointers on taijutsu. Seeing Yuta's gaze, Might Guy seemed to feel questioned and said with some lack of confidence. On the one hand, he was indeed a little young, and it had not been long since he had become a jonin. On the other hand, he was only good at taijutsu, and in terms of ninjutsu and genjutsu that he was basically clueless. "I didn't question Mr. Guy's strength," Yuta said seriously. "I once heard of Mr. Guy's father's record. With the power of a genin, he blocked Kirigaku's 7 ninja swordsmen, and killed 4 of them in the battle. I think Mr. Guy's strength is definitely not be bad." "Well, it's so touching." Might Guy seemed to have tears in his eyes because of the rare approval, and he wanted to hug Yuta and cry on the spot. Yuta. He was hesitant to speak. So, he just stopped talking. Ugh. Might Guy is very powerful and admirable, but his character is really unbearable for ordinary people. In general, Yuta was still very satisfied with Might Guy as his mentor jonin. In terms of strength, Might Guy normally has the strength of a jonin, and he can even open the 8 inner gates in a critical situation. His sense of security when going out to perform tasks was greatly improved. In terms of guiding himself, there was nothing wrong about Might Guy's taijutsu. After all, even Uchiha Madara had declared Might Guy the strongest in terms of taijutsu. As for ninjutsu and genjutsu, with Indra's talent, just self-studying was enough. On the contrary, he required the guidance of people with sufficient strength and experience for taijutsu. In Yuta's heart, the importance of taijutsu was no less than ninjutsu and genjutsu, and it might even be higher to some extent. In the world of Naruto, in genin to Kage level battles, ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu are all useful. But in super Kage level battles, genjutsus don't have much effect, but ninjutsu and taijutsu are still useful. In the battle at the 6 paths level, the effect of ninjutsu is greatly weakened, but taijutsu is still extremely useful. Yuta first set a small stage goal for himself. He wanted to be able to dance with Uchiha Madara by just relying on pure taijutsu. Looking around, seeing that no one else came over, Yuta expressed some doubts in his heart. Guy-sensei, don't we have any other members in our team? Oh, Lord Hokage told me before that because you graduated early, it was difficult to find teammates to form a team. Guy struggled to recall and said, the one who graduated early with you is called Itachi, or something. He was just added to a 2-person team since the team had just lost a member earlier. As for you, because a suitable team wasn't found, you are the only one in the team. Hearing the name Itachi, Yuta couldn't help but twitch the corners of his mouth. He wondered how Itachi would feel after listening to it. Yuta didn't care too much about having no teammates. 2 genin-level teammates were just optional for him. But he felt that this team was a bit strange. This team only contained a recently promoted jonin, and there was only 1 student. Yuta felt that something was off. It may be true that Sarutobi Huruzen couldn't find a team to throw him in, but why did he choose Guy to be his mentor jonin? However, if he wants to choose a jonin who can guide Yuta about the will of fire, there are not many candidates. Ultimately, Sarutobi Huruzen chose Guy. Now that both Yuta and Guy had gotten familiar with each other, it was natural to start the teaching session. Yuta was eager and excited to know about the real strength of a jonin. Knowing that there must be a huge gap between himself and a jonin, Yuta used his Sharingan from the very beginning. On the opposite side, Guy lowered his eyes slightly, staring at the movements in Yuta's eyes. Although I don't have a Sharingan, I also have a wealth of fighting experience against a Sharingan user, and I have a good understanding of Sharingan's abilities and in its user's fighting style. Seeing Yuta on the opposite side punch him, Guy did not take advantage of his strength to directly tank it, but instead dodged. So fast. With a secret thought in his heart, Yuta was prepared to change the direction of his fist and hit the place he had predicted Guy was in. However, what Guy did was just a feint. He jumped to another direction, stretched out his hand and pushed Yuta lightly. Exclamation point. Yuta felt startled in his heart. His body rushed forward a few steps uncontrollably, barely stopping. Was his prediction wrong? Sharingan predicts the opponent's movements by observing the movement of the opponent's muscles, and I can use this to deceive Sharingan's insight and make your prediction wrong. Guy grinned and explained to Yuta. This is the valuable experience that he had accumulated by fighting against Kakashi over the years. I'll teach you how to distinguish your opponent's fake moves later, and what to do if you fail to predict their movements. And these were the experiences Kakashi had accumulated by fighting against him. With their daily battles, the two also helped each other improve in this way. I see, thank you Guy-sensei. Yuta said with a smile on the corner of his mouth. With Guy as a teacher, along with Kakashi's experience with the Sharingan, this was basically a buy one get one free offer. Chapter 12, Might Guy's Talent. In the next half a month, Yuta was constantly on the verge of death. This was Guy's first time as a mentor jonin, and he didn't intend to hold back on any teaching material. He even intended to teach Yuta the 8 inner gates. But mastering the 8 inner gates requires the user to have an extremely high level of physique, as well as years of exercise. The user has to gradually make their body stronger through exercise in order to adapt to the strength after opening the 8 gates. Take Guy himself, his body can easily handle the opening of the 6th gate now. But if he tries to open the 7th gate, he may die on the spot. In order to teach Yuta the 8 inner gates, Guy first gave Yuta some adaptive training. For the past half month, he let Yuta do about 1/10 of his own exercise every day together with him. But even so, Yuta was always very exhausted. He even complained about Guy for a while in his heart. Can ordinary people bear that amount of exercise? Ordinary people just run a few dozen laps to exercise, but Guy asked him to run thousands of laps. What's more, he is not even 8 years old. Now, Yuta understood that people like Guy and Rock Lee might have a special talent for taijutsu. There was a saying in his previous life, don't use the word genius to obliterate others' efforts. But in Yuta's view, another sentence was also very important in reverse, a person may be a genius just because he works hard. Someone like Guy. Now, Yuta had just finished a day's worth of hellish exercise. He forcibly moved his body back home, and fell straight down. He felt severely dizzy, and gold stars flashed in his eyes, and his body ached constantly. Well, how about I just give up on the 8 inner gates? Yuta felt depressed and lost hope for a while. Seeing his miserable appearance recently, Izumi had been distressingly persuading him to relax. The Uchiha-style taijutsu is based on Sharingan's insight and is more technical. Guy's fighting style on the other hand focuses more on strength and speed. After opening the 8 inner gates, the main increase is in terms of power and speed. Regarding the 8 inner gates, a life-saving magical skill, it was impossible for Yuta to not want it. Just when Yuta was tangled in his heart. Congratulations. Host's comprehensive strength has been improved to Chunin, weak. The overall strength of the host has been improved by a stage, and the system is analyzing new talents. Analyzing Might Guy's physique talent. The analysis has been completed, and it is increasing. The increase has been completed, congratulations to host for obtaining the monster physique talent. Yuta directly sat up in shock. He checked out the following system panels. Comprehensive strength, Chunin, weak. Sharingan pupil power, LV1, 45/50ths. Chakra, LV2, 50/500. Monster physique, your physique is unique, and you can master all kinds of taijutsu techniques with just a glance, and in all matters related to the body, you can get twice the result with half the effort. Seeing the improvement in overall strength, Yuta wasn't much surprised. During this time, with Guy's daily exercise, his pupil power and chakra volume were gradually increasing. His comprehensive strength reaching the level of a Chunin could be regarded as a matter of course. But there was still some emotion in his heart. A month ago, he was even weaker than the weakest genin. He couldn't even beat a little girl Izumi in their daily duels. Now a month had passed, and he had graduated early to become a genin. He could now easily use the Great Fireball technique, and he had even awakened one Tomi Sharingan, and it was even not far away from a Two-tomo Sharingan. His comprehensive strength had even reached the level of a Chunin. It seemed that in the Naruto world, talent was very important. Yuta quickly calmed down and felt his newly acquired monster physique talent. What? Yuta became startled, and he stood up directly. He moved his body, and even jumped twice. His body was still sore before. It had become completely fine now. And that wasn't the only change. Yuta threw a punch, and his fist rubbed violently against the air, making a sound similar to a sonic boom. My speed has improved a lot. Yuta tried some of the taijutsu moves that he had recently learned from Guy. Konoha Whirlwind. A high-speed cyclone slammed into a stone in the courtyard, smashing the stone with a bang. Seeing this, Yuta nodded with satisfaction. His strength had increased a lot, and his moves were more precise. In the yard next door, hearing the movement, a small head protruded from the wall. Yuta, have a good rest. Stop messing around. Izumi said loudly. How could this person not love his body so much? He exerts himself every day until he can't even walk steadily, and now he doesn't have a good rest at night, and he's still training in the yard. Understood. Yuta responded with a smile on his face, and went back to sleep contentedly. He had a dream in which Guy was on my feet, and he discussed the will of fire with Sarutobi Huruzen. The next day, Yuta and Guy reunited. You have been training for half a month. Today, let's check your progress and see how good your potential is. Guy grinned and said with a guilty conscience, when I was your age, I exercised with my father, and the amount of exercise I did at that time was just 1/3 of what I do now. This was a lie. When he was 8, he was only exercising about 1/5 as much as he does now. The reason he said this was because he wanted to arouse Yuta's competitive spirit as much as possible and stimulate more of his potential. Okay. Yuta clenched his fists with anticipation in his eyes. He also wanted to know what level his talent in taijutsu had reached after the system granted him the enhanced version of Guy's physique talent. Okay. Youth should never end. Guy gave a thumbs up and ran forward first. Let's warm up with 500 laps first, let's start. After starting to run, Yuta realized the changes in his body. He felt much more relaxed when running than before, and his pace and breathing were more stable. When he ran this amount in the past, he would already be exhausted and almost collapse. Now he was just a little short of breath, and he was still full of energy. Very good, now let's do 1,000 squats, start now. The anticipation in Guy's eyes grew stronger and he increased Yuta's training volume. However, soon, as the amount of exercise gradually increased, Guy realized that something was wrong. The amount of exercise Yuta was doing now had reached 1/5 of his daily routine. Yuta already achieved this level at such a young age. Guy gulped and looked at Yuta, who clearly had some energy left. Guy-sensei, go ahead, I'm fine. Yuta calmed down and said. Chapter 13, Opening 2 Gates in 1 Day. Guy is aware of the difficulty of his own training volume. Kakashi occasionally trains with him, but even Kakashi can't handle his training regimen at all. Not to mention, he remembered that his father had said that he was much more gifted than him when he was a child. This could be noticed from their ninja ranks. His father had been a genin all his life, and at this age, he had already become a jonin with only taijutsu. So, he also knew that it would be difficult to find someone to pass on his 8 inner gates. But after hearing that Yuta, who he was in charge of, was a genius, he couldn't help but want to try it. But he didn't have much expectation at that time. Guy looked at Yuta, who was still keeping up with his exercise, and his heart shook. Yuta's performance completely exceeded his expectations. That. If your body can't handle it, don't force it, don't damage your body. Guy stammered. Yuta had now completed 1/3 of his own daily training regimen. What level is this? Even he couldn't do this level of exercise at Yuta's age. Yuta frowned. He felt that his body was reaching the limit, and after doing a few more sets of movements with struggle, he stopped reluctantly. This should not be the case, right? Isn't the physique talent given by the system the augmented version of Guy's talent? Why can he only reach the level of Guy when he was just a child? Ahem. I was a little flustered before. Guy coughed lightly, his face a little embarrassed. I could only do about 1/5 as much exercise as I do now at your age. The reason why I said more was to motivate you, but I didn't expect you to directly exceed the level I was at during my childhood. Saying this, Guy couldn't help but feel a little envious. Taijutsu is the only field he is good at. But now Yuta seemed to be even more talented than him in that aspect as well. This level of talent is really unreasonable. Yuta suddenly realized what the case was. It was a little unexpected. Guy, you have such thick eyebrows and big eyes, but you still have such a dishonest mind. I thought it would take a while before I could teach you the 8 inner gates, but now it seems that I can do it today. Fixing his mood, Guy became firm again. Subsequently, Guy began by explaining the essentials of the 8 inner gates. Opening, rest, life, pain, closing, joy, shock, and death. The 8 gates are basically 8 pressure points of the human body. Under normal circumstances, the 8 gates exist to protect the human body and prevent ninjas from overusing their physical potential. But after the 8 gates are opened, the restrictions are lifted. Then, a huge amount of chakra will erupt, and the strength and speed will be greatly increased, and a huge amount of power will be obtained in a short time. In other words, the 8 inner gates is a life-saving measure. This is also one of the reasons why Yuta wants to learn the 8 inner gates. He will still be too young, only 13 years old when the night of extermination arrives in the future. Mastering the 8 inner gates will give him an extra life-saving method. Firstly, you have to open the first gate, opening gate, which is located on the head. After that, you will be able to fully exert your physical abilities and your strength and speed will drastically increase in a short time. Guy said while giving a live demonstration. With a light shout, Guy's chakra skyrocketed. Swish. Swish. Several difficult physical movements were easily completed, and his body was incredibly flexible. Yuta activated the Sharingan and watched carefully. How is it? It's amazing, right? According to my estimation, with your talent, it will take at most a few months for you to open the first gate. Guy gave a thumbs up and laughed. However, the next moment, he saw that Yuta also snorted. Then his chakra also soared. He had obviously opened the first gate. Guy opened his mouth and didn't know what to say. How long did it take him to open the first gate? 2 months. Or 3 months. However, Yuta opened the first gate on the spot. Yuta made a few moves and carefully felt the changes in his body. The amount of chakra in his body had nearly doubled, and his strength and speed had become much higher than usual. However, he also experienced fatigue very quickly. Looking up, seeing Guy's skeptical expression, Yuta humbly said, "It's all due to Guy-sensei's wonderful teachings." Actually, the most important reason why he could learn the 8 inner gates so quickly was of course the physique talent that he had just recently acquired. On the one hand, he could now easily master various taijutsu techniques. On the other hand, the physique talent also brought him an understanding of various taijutsu techniques. The combination of the two allowed Yuta to open a gate on the spot. You geniuses are too unreasonable. Guy couldn't help but sigh. However, Yuta hurriedly urged, "Guy-sensei, please explain the second gate as well." Guy choked and became even more speechless. In such a hurry? Do you want to open all 8 inner gates in one day? He didn't believe that Yuta could open the second gate as well today. Afterwards, Guy began to explain the theory and way to open the second gate, and demonstrated it on the spot. This time, Yuta failed to open the second gate on the first try. Instead, he stood there frowning and thinking. Seeing this, Guy wiped the sweat from his forehead, thinking that this was reasonable. Learning 8 inner gates and opening the first gate on the first day already shows that Yuta is extremely talented. Next, get familiar with the feeling of the first gate, and then try more. You should be able to open the second gate soon. As he was talking, Guy suddenly stopped. His eyes were about to pop out, and his mind went blank. Without him noticing, after a period of exploration, Yuta had successfully opened the second gate, the Gate of Rest. Feeling the rising power, Yuta was in a happy mood. "Guy-sensei, can you go ahead and tell me how to open the third gate?" Guy opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say once more. Chapter 14, Izumi Awakens the Sharingan. Yuta couldn't open the third gate that day. It wasn't until the sun went down that Guy became relieved. With the momentum before, he thought Yuta could completely master the 8 inner gates in just one day. But Yuta was still too young. The first 2 gates of the 8 inner gates just allow people to fully make use of their physical potential. The side effects are just fatigue after a while. After reaching the third gate, there is a possibility of causing damage to the body. Sure enough, the 8 inner gates is not easy to master. Yuta sighed with exhaustion. "Of course." Guy said, "As a matter of course, I have practiced so many more years than you, and now I can only open the 6th gate at most. But with your talent, Yuta, you should be able to open the third gate in a month at most." Having said that, Guy's expression became serious and he warned, "Remember, when using the 8 inner gates, you should always pay attention to your physical condition and do not forcefully open the gate." With Yuta's talent, he would likely go further than him in terms of mastery of the 8 inner gates. It would be a pity if he died prematurely because of forcefully opening a gate. But 7 days later, Guy became speechless again when he saw Yuta open the third gate. Yuta was not surprised, and instead he frowned secretly. After opening the third gate, he could see the high-speed flow of blood under his skin, and his whole body was becoming congested and turning red. After only 1 minute, Yuta closed the third gate and felt an extremely strong sense of exhaustion. This should be the limit that he can achieve at his age. If he wants to continue to open the 4th gate and more, he will need to wait for the development of his body. Next, Yuta continued doing daily high-intensity workouts with Guy, and he occasionally practiced some taijutsu techniques. His strength was growing day by day. Occasionally, he would take a C-rank task of going out to clear up some bandits, and they were all completed without any trouble. Sometimes he even got emotional. Bandits in the Land of Fire are like leaks, they quickly emerge again after being destroyed once. Yuta, who took a human life for the first time, didn't feel any major turmoil in his heart. He had long been aware of the cruelty of the ninja world. The crisis of the Uchiha genocide was still hanging over his head. However, after committing the murder, his pupil power increased by a little. It had reached the limit of a One-tomo Sharingan. His Sharingan was not far from being promoted to the Two-tomo level. On the training ground of the Uchiha clan. Fire release, fire dragon bullet technique. A huge fire dragon spewed out of Yuta's mouth, knocking down the target easily, and burning the ground black. Yuta's expression didn't fluctuate at all. Sure enough, even the B-rank fire dragon bullet technique could be easily used after just reading the scroll once, and memorizing the direction of chakra flow. And it could also be cast without a hand seal. It can only be said that it is indeed worthy of Indra's talent. Before my strength reaches the level of a jonin, this level of ninjutsu is probably enough, but genjutsu. Yuta frowned slightly. Ninjutsu can be trained alone. But for genjutsu, a living target is needed. A certain long black-haired figure appeared in his mind. Yuta suppressed his slightly tingling conscience and walked towards Izumi's house. Did you do something to hurt me recently? Izumi stared at Yuta vigilantly. In front of her, there was a row of rice balls, pancakes, bean soup, and so on. All her favorite food were here. What are you talking about? Yuta said with some guilty conscience, I just want to ask you for help in training genjutsu. Really? Naturally. Izumi picked up a rice ball and took a small bite, feeling the sweet and savory taste in her mouth. With a little sadness, she said, I feel like I'm just a tool for your training, Yuta. Yuta felt more guilty when he heard this, but he still denied it. He took out a few scrolls in his hand. These were the genjutsu scrolls that Fugaku had given him before. Sly mind effect technique, false surroundings technique here, hell viewing technique. Some techniques would cause great pain to the target, so he would not try it on Izumi. False surroundings technique. Yuta activated the genjutsu according to the chakra flow on the scroll, and he still didn't need any hand seals. Yuta looked at Izumi with some curiosity, wondering if the genjutsu was successful. What? A little doubt appeared on Izumi's face. She rubbed her eyes, and looked at a tree in the courtyard. Yuta, why did you suddenly go there? Seeing this, Yuta naturally understood that his genjutsu was successfully activated. The effect of the false surroundings technique was to change the view in the eyes of the target. For example, in Izumi's field of vision now, the tree in the yard was him. The effect is not bad. Yuta nodded with satisfaction. Although he did not intend to use genjutsu as his main means of combat, the genjutsu talent obtained from the Indra bloodline was very good and he didn't plan to waste it. Next, he tried the sly mind effect technique, which made Izumi mistakenly think that she had entered a maze and she wandered around the yard for a while. The last one, hell viewing technique. Seeing the description of this genjutsu, Yuta hesitated. The effect of this genjutsu is to let the target see the most feared scene in their heart. Wouldn't it be bad for this to be used on Izumi? Suddenly thinking of some possibility, Yuta secretly said sorry in his heart, but still decided to give it a try. The next genjutsu may make you see some bad things. Remember, everything you see later will be fake. Yuta reminded seriously. He wanted to try and see if he could help Izumi awaken her Sharingan through a genjutsu. If Izumi awaken her Sharingan, and then trains more seriously, she would be able to somewhat protect herself in this dangerous world. At least, he didn't want her to easily get killed by Obito like in the original. However, Izumi's well-being is much more important than these. He can't let anything go wrong with Izumi just for the sake of testing his genjutsu. Izumi nodded earnestly, and when she saw Yuta on the opposite side activate a genjutsu, the scene in front of her suddenly changed. A full moon hung high, and an ominous atmosphere permeated the village. The huge body of Nine Tails easily smashed all the buildings it touched, and boulders splashed around. The flying stones knocked down both her and Yuta's home. Blood flowed out from under the wall. She was the only one left, facing the collapsed home. Dad, Mom. Yuta. Completely forgetting that this was a genjutsu, Izumi's mind went blank as she rushed towards the ruins in front of her. Her body suddenly stopped. Pointing her finger on her forehead, she injected chakra, and the scene in front of her changed again. A cold chakra poured into her eyes. Opening her eyes, she saw Yuta alive, surrounded by his own home, and the surrounding atmosphere was peaceful and natural. She couldn't help but put her hand towards Yuta and she rubbed the other's face. "Yuta, you're still alive, it's great." "Well, I'm here, and uncle and aunt are also all right. What you saw before was fake." "Great." Seeing Izumi falling asleep directly, Yuta's mood was very complicated. He wondered if this was really good for Izumi. Looking at the little girl sleeping in his arms, Yuta sighed in his heart. This ninja world is really not gentle. Chapter 15, Two-tomo Sharingan. The key to awakening the Sharingan is emotion. In the end, the reason why Izumi was able to awaken her Sharingan was not because the Genjutsu was so realistic but because the heart-wrenching emotions of Izumi at that time were real. "So you've been scared all this time?" Yuta looked at the little girl who was sleeping in his arms. Izumi's petite body shrunk into a ball, looking very insecure. In the original book, Izumi's father died on the Night of Nine Tails, and Izumi awakened her Sharingan at a young age. However, Izumi's family avoided the catastrophe on the Night of Nine Tails because of his interference. But when she saw her home in ruins the next day, Izumi became afraid. She even occasionally had nightmares, dreaming that both her parents and Yuta died on the Night of Nine Tails, leaving her alone. It is precisely because of this fearful worry, coupled with the hell-viewing technique that caused Izumi to recall the Night of Nine Tails, that Izumi had such an eye-opening emotional stimulation. In the future, a catastrophe awaits the Uchiha. If he doesn't have the strength, how can he survive? Why does he practice so hard day after day? Isn't it because he is worried that he will be killed by Itachi in the future? Not only must he improve his strength and fight to survive the night of extermination, but he must also find a way to keep Izumi's family safe. When Izumi woke up, Yuta warned her seriously, asking her to not reveal her awakening of the Sharingan to others. It would be bad if Danzo set his eyes on Izumi. After Izumi awakened her Sharingan, Yuta's daily training for Izumi increased by a lot. And Izumi seemed to have taken the daily training a lot more seriously because she saw the most frightening scene in the Genjutsu. Outside the Hokage building, Guy jumped out, and he found Yuta waiting outside. He said excitedly, "I received an escort mission to the capital of the Land of Rain. How about it? Are you looking forward to it? This is the first time you are about to leave the Land of Fire." However, contrary to Guy's expectations, Yuta instead frowned. Land of Rain. This can be said to be the most dangerous place in the current ninja world. The demigod Hanzo in Omega-kure, Pain outside Omega-kure, and possibly Obito. He might even run into Akatsuki's moneymaker, Kakuzu. Or Sasori looking for puppet materials. Both were early members of the Akatsuki organization. The first three can basically be said to be the most difficult people to mess with in the current ninja world. The latter two are also Kage-level powerhouses. "Guy-sensei, can you change this mission?" Yuta said somewhat reluctantly. "The Land of Rain is too dangerous, so let's just perform a normal B-rank or C-rank mission in the Land of Fire." "How could that be?" Guy flatly refused. Youth is not allowed to retreat in spite of difficulties. Besides, Lord Hokage must have fully considered the difficulty of the task and our ability when assigning us this task. After persuading him with a few more words, he still failed to persuade Guy, so Yuta just gave up. Never mind. Thinking about it, Hanzo and Pain won't care about him who is currently a nobody. Guy and Yuta went outside Konoha and met up with a caravan. Their client was a fat businessman and the leader of the caravan. The rank of the task I entrusted is B rank. Seeing Guy and Yuta, the caravan leader frowned and said. Obviously because of their appearance and age, he felt that they were a little unreliable. A young guy in green tights, and a 7 or 8-year-old kid. He spent enough money for a B-rank mission, and Konoha sent these two people. "Guy-sensei, you forgot to wear your Jonin vest again," Yuta said helplessly. With the combination of the two of them, it was inevitable for the other party to be uneasy. "Hey, sorry, I forgot again. How about I go back and pick it up? I'll be back soon." Guy shook his head a little embarrassedly and smiled. It turned out to be Lord Jonin. The leader of the caravan immediately changed his face, and said in a pleasant manner. No, since you are Konoha's Jonin, I can trust your strength." He had also entrusted ninjas as escorts many times, and now he roughly understood the situation of this group of ninjas. Apparently, some jonins usually lead newly graduated genins to perform a mission. This combination is most welcome by the client. Although the jonin will usually let the genin team members deal with the enemy, if there really is something serious, the jonin will still take action. Spending the money to hire an ordinary ninja team but having a jonin in the lineup is undoubtedly very profitable. The caravan departed soon. During the chat on the road, Yuta learned that this caravan was delivering supplies to the daimyo of the Land of Rain. After arriving in the Land of Rain, what enemies will we likely face? Yuta asked. The other party often travels to and from the Land of Fire to the Land of Rain, and he knows this even better than some ninjas. Mainly some bandits, there may also be an attack by wandering ninjas, and maybe even ninjas from Omegakure. The caravan leader replied. Omegakure ninjas. Yuta and Guy looked at each other. The ninjas of Omegakure may attack the caravans in the Land of Rain. Isn't this a gift to the daimyo of the Land of Rain? As long as you say it, the Omegakure ninjas won't give us trouble, right? Yuta asked inexplicably. It might have been so before. The caravan leader said with some emotion. In the past, Lord Hanzo could restrain his subordinates, but now, I have heard that Lord Hanzo is staying in his residence in Omegakure all year round, and he has lost control of his subordinates. And those Omegakure ninjas, as long as they kill everyone, who will know that they attacked the caravan sending supplies to the daimyo? Yuta and Guy shook their heads with a look of understanding. In the Land of Rain. It was already late autumn, but there was still a lot of rain in the Land of Rain. The icy rain hit Yuta, and it was chilling. And many bandits even came out to rob the caravan. There are too many bandits in the Land of Rain, right? There are more than in the Land of Fire. Yuta easily defeated these gang of thieves. He dumped their bodies aside, and said speechlessly. He thought that there were already many bandits in the Land of Fire. Unexpectedly, compared with the Land of Rain, it was completely insignificant. If you don't have food to eat, won't you try to grab anything you find? The caravan leader tightened his clothes and said. Furthermore, Omegakure is perfunctory when it comes to the daimyo's request to clear the thieves. But even if they are serious, they will not be able to completely clean up these bandits. Yuta looked at the large amount of food and playthings in the delivered materials. He sneered, the people in the country are so poor that they have to become thieves, but the daimyo is living such a good life. The voice fell, but no one dared to agree. Even the caravan leader remained silent. Seeing this, Yuta became more and more disgusted with the daimyo. Suddenly, cold chakra poured into his eyes. Without needing to look in the mirror, Yuta knew that his Sharingan had been upgraded to Two-tomo. Just as he was about to deactivate his Sharingan, he saw two vague chakras not far away. In a low voice, he reminded everyone in the caravan, someone is approaching, it's a ninja. Chapter 16, Easily Defeating Chunins. The entire caravan was in a commotion. Many people looked around in panic. The battle of ninjas, even if it is just the aftermath of kunai and ninjutsu, may cost them their lives. Yuta pouted and sighed inwardly at this group of noob teammates. With such a big reaction, the enemy must now know that they had been exposed. Without any hesitation at the moment, he used the great fireball technique towards the woods not far away. Boom. Under the weakening of the rain, the great fireball failed to do much damage, and the two ninjas hiding in the dark easily dodged it. One tall and one short, two ninjas came out of the woods. Facing them, Yuta realized that the two men were Omegakure ninjas from the forehead protector of Omegakure in their head. In other words, what the caravan leader said before was true. In the Land of Rain, the caravan that was sending supplies to the daimyo of the Land of Rain was being intercepted by Omegakure ninjas. Really, speechless. TSK, to know ninjutsu at such a young age, it seems that he is a genius of Konoha. It's just a pity that geniuses are most likely to die early. The two Omegakure ninjas looked relaxed and didn't pay any attention to Yuta and Guy. The two of them were Chunin. And as for the opposite two Konoha ninjas. One is a weirdo in green tights, who looks like a turtle. He looks like he's still young, and he doesn't look very strong at first glance. The other one is more of a brat. Even if he knows fire release ninjutsu, in a place like the Land of Rain, the power of fire release is greatly reduced. We want these supplies. If you give up, we can give you a quicker death. The tall Omegakure ninja said with greedy eyes. So many things, how much would it sell for on the black market? The leader of the caravan used the name of the daimyo of the Land of Rain to intimidate them, but the other party didn't care. Helpless, he could only say to Guy, Lord Jonin, you may need to take action. I see their outfits, they should be Chunins of Omegakure. He didn't think Yuta could beat a Chunin. It's just these two random dudes, I don't think Guy-sensei's help will be needed. Yuta reached out and stroked his eyes lightly. He can also use these two people to test the ability of Two-tomo Sharingan. A Two-tomo Sharingan greatly enhances the ability of Genjutsu. At the moment, he held a kunai and charged towards the two Omegakure ninjas as if he was launching a decisive charge. The caravan leader was impatient for a while, but seeing that Guy was indifferent, he was helpless. The two Omegakure ninjas sneered. He's quite brave. Then I will teach you a lesson before you die. In the ninja world, bravery is useless. With that said, the tall ninja rushed up first. The short sword in his hand broke through the rain droplets, and slashed straight at Yuta's neck. The Scarlet Sharingan was activated, and a Genjutsu was performed silently. The tall ninja slashed the open space beside him, then suddenly turned around and slashed at his comrade. Swish. The short sword tore open the short ninja's chest. The short ninja received this blow out of nowhere, and at this time he was completely confused. Genjutsu, false surroundings technique. In the sight of the tall ninja, his companion was now Yuta. After abruptly slashing the opponent, the tall ninja smirked and slashed at his teammate again and again. Hey! Are you crazy? Damn, is it a Genjutsu? The short ninja was in a hurry and wanted to help his teammate remove the Genjutsu. But he didn't have any chance to do so under the crazy offensive. With ruthlessness in his heart, he avoided his teammate's sword, and slashed directly at his chest with a cold look in his eyes. Taking advantage of the other party's severe pain, he finally found an opportunity to help him lift the Genjutsu. Clap. 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 A burst of applause came from not far away. With a smile on his face, Yuta said calmly, "Not bad, the two of you really taught me a good lesson." The entire caravan behind him was dumbfounded at this moment. From their point of view, the two Omegakure ninjas fought against each other for no particular reason. Now, no one dared to underestimate Yuta, a young ninja. "You bloody bastard." The tall ninja gritted his teeth and said angrily, enduring the severe pain in his chest. He was actually controlled by a little kid who was less than 10 years old with a Genjutsu. "Let's go together and kill them as soon as possible," the short ninja said in a deep voice. There was a burst of anger in his chest. Another older Konoha ninja on the other side hadn't made a move yet, and just a kid made them both so helpless. Yuta pulled out the short sword on his back and stood in front of them. The shiny blade reflected his face, which had a grin. "Then let me teach you a lesson too. There is an old saying in the ninja world, facing an Uchiha, 1-on-1, you must escape. 2-on-1, you might stand a chance. Of course, if you are so weak, it won't work even if it is a 2-on-1. Uchiha." The two ninjas looked at each other with an ominous premonition in their hearts. They looked up and saw Yuta's scarlet pupils. Those scarlet pupils contained two pitch-black tomos. Two-tomo Sharingan. Who did they bump into? When did the Uchiha have such a young genius? There was some remorse in their hearts, but they knew that they had no way out. So they endured the severe pain and attacked Yuta from two directions, one in front and the other behind. Didn't I just say it? You two don't stand a chance. Yuta easily used his taijutsu to fight against them, and it didn't take long for the two ninjas, who were already injured, to be defeated. "Just now, I've been wanting to find someone to try some painful genjutsus. You two are a good target." The corners of his mouth twitched and formed a smile, and his voice was like the whisper of a demon. "Don't worry, it'll just be a little painful." Chapter 17, Orochimaru's Defection Event. Having easily dealt with two Chunins from Omegakure, Yuta didn't feel any surprise. On the one hand, it was because the two of them were already seriously injured by his genjutsu. On the other hand, his taijutsu practiced with Guy and Sharingan's insight played a big role on the battle. He could easily deal with 2 injured Chunins. But in the eyes of the caravan gang, it was naturally completely different. A child less than 10 years old defeated 2 Chunins alone. How could he defeat them so easily? That's 2 Chunins. How old is he? As expected of Konoha's genius, it's just different. The caravan leader became even more cautious, for fear that he would be hated by Konoha's genius ninja because of his previous contempt. It was Guy who had the least reaction. After all, he had long recognized the talent of Yuta. However, after seeing Yuta use the Two-tomo Sharingan, he couldn't help but be shocked. As for the reason for Sharingan's upgrade, Guy didn't exactly know it. Guy thought it was a breakthrough in the fight. Only Yuta knew that his Sharingan was upgraded to Two-tomo because of his disgust for the daimyo. The daimyo does various things just for the sake of his own pleasure. Unbridled, unrestrained Omegakure ninjas. Poor people. Hordes of thieves. No wonder pain can be bred on this land. The caravan continued to rush towards the capital of the Land of Rain. And here by the woods where the brief battle took place. An invisible vortex appeared in the air, and a figure wearing a spiral mask appeared out of thin air. There was also a strange creature that was half black and half white growing on the ground. Aren't we going to get in touch with him? Aren't we trying to attract potential Uchihas to join us to enrich our strength? White Zetsu on the left half said with a smile. Well, I don't need him for now. Obito said as he looked at the passing team. Originally, I was more interested in Itachi who graduated early. Now it seems that this Yuta, who has awakened the Two-tomo Sharingan, is also a genius. Saying this, Obito's figure disappeared in the vortex again. Let's go and get in touch with Itachi first. It's time to give him a little stimulation so that he can awaken his Sharingan. I finally left the Land of Rain. Once again stepping into the Land of Fire, Yuta couldn't help but feel an indescribable sense of security in his heart. The mission had been completed. After the daimyo's supplies were escorted in place, he and Guy were even received by the daimyo. They even stayed in the capital of the Land of Rain for a few days. Compared to the rest of the dilapidated Land of Rain, the capital was very prosperous. In particular, a special service industry could be seen everywhere. But after seeing so many impoverished people and killing so many bandits on the way, Yuta didn't want to stay in the Land of Rain any longer. He feared that he wouldn't be able to control himself, and he might cut off the daimyo's head. Also, the Land of Rain is indeed too dangerous. Hanzo, Pain, Obito, Kakuzu, Sasori. All of these people are beyond his league right now. Fortunately, none of them were encountered, and the mission ended safely. Yuta, you are too careful. Guy laughed and patted Yuta on the shoulder and said, it's just a B-rank escort mission. The Land of Rain is not a big country. What dangerous enemies can we encounter? Yuta rolled his eyes and said nothing. He was most likely the one with the deepest knowledge of the ninja world at present. The Land of Rain is definitely one of the most dangerous places in the current ninja world, and considering the number of powerhouse there, it is not much inferior to the 5 major hidden villages. However, fortunately, he had returned to the Land of Fire and was mostly safe now. Not only that, this trip also allowed him to successfully awaken the Two-tomo Sharingan, and his strength had improved a lot. From this point of view, he would like to thank the daimyo of the Land of Rain. He took a look at the system panel. Comprehensive Strength, Chunin, Middle. Sharingan Pupil Power, LV2, 55/500. Chakra, LV2, 100/500. After awakening the Two-tomo Sharingan, his amount of chakra nearly doubled. Coupled with his arsenal of so many fire-release ninjutsus, genjutsus, as well as his rapidly improving taijutsu with the help of daily sparring with Guy, his current overall strength was not bad among Chunin-level ninjas. In the face of a life-and-death crisis, he can now barely open up to the 3rd gate. Even against a Jonin, with the 8 inner gates, he can last for a while. At 8 years old, this level of strength. Compared to when the system was not activated half a year ago, his strength had seen some drastic changes. But in this dangerous ninja world, a Chunin is nothing. He still needs to grow for a period of time. At least with the strength of a Jonin, he can barely protect himself in the ninja world. However, he had been worried that he might encounter danger in the Land of Rain, but he didn't. After entering the land of fire, he encountered an emergency. In a wood. Yuta and Guy met several Umbu wearing animal masks. One of the Umbu was wearing a wolf face mask, and he saw Yuta and Guy. He came directly and ordered, "As Chief Umbu, I am enlisting a Konoha ninja who is currently not undertaking a mission to join me in pursuit of the rebel Orochimaru." Chapter 18, Blocking Orochimaru. Yuta and Guy looked at each other. Lord Orochimaru defected. This was my thought. Orochimaru just defected now. This was Yuta's thought. Orochimaru has remained largely unknown since the 4th Hokage's campaign. After the Nine Tails Rebellion, almost nothing was heard about Orochimaru. So much so that Yuta forgot that Orochimaru was a Konoha ninja until now. Lord Umbu, did you make a mistake? Guy was incoherent and found it unbelievable. How could Lord Orochimaru defect? Isn't he a disciple of Lord Hokage? Exactly. Orochimaru is someone who once even ran for the position of the 4th Hokage. Orochimaru would be the 4th Hokage if it weren't for the rise of Minato. Even without becoming the Hokage. In the current Konoha, Orochimaru is a figure second only to Sarutobi Huruzen and several counselor elders. Orochimaru could be said to be an absolute higher-up. This kind of person actually defected. Orochimaru used the villagers and ninjas of the village to conduct human experiments. After this was revealed that he was forced to rebel. You will hear about it when you return to Konoha. The wolf-face-masked Konoha Umbu, the eldest son of Sarutobi Huruzen, Sarutobi Shinosuke said coldly. Regarding Orochimaru's defection, his father was probably heartbroken, and he might even have let Orochimaru run away because he couldn't bear to kill him. But for him, this was a good thing. In the Konoha power level, now there was one less person with a higher position than him. There was also one less contender for the Hokage position. And this time, if he succeeds in taking down Orochimaru, his prestige in the village will be greatly enhanced. He will be one step closer to becoming the 5th Hokage in the future. I don't have time to say more, let's go to stop Orochimaru now. We can't let the other party leave the land of fire. Sarutobi Shinosuke said coldly. Seeing that Guy wanted to obey the order, Yuta became anxious and said quickly, Orochimaru is one of the Sannin, how can we deal with him? Also, I have never heard that the Chief Umbu has the power to recruit Konoha ninjas. Is Guy crazy? That's Orochimaru. Is he someone that the two of them can handle with their current strength? Even if Guy opens 6th gate, he can only stall Orochimaru for a while at most. Orochimaru has been seriously injured, and his strength is not inexhaustible. Sarutobi Shinosuke said, looking at Yuta with killing intent in his eyes. As for whether I have the power to recruit you, what do you know? Will you two take responsibility if a dangerous rebel like Orochimaru escapes? The Chief Umbu is not the Hokage and has no power to recruit idle Konoha ninjas. But in the face of the great feat of killing Orochimaru, Sarutobi Shinosuke couldn't care less. Not to mention, who would dare not listen to him? If the other party still refused, and the pursuit of Orochimaru fails in the future, the responsibility for the failure will be shared. Yuta, if we really meet Orochimaru, you can leave the battle to me, and you can just step aside. Guy grinned. Although he has just been promoted to Jonin, he wants to fulfill his share of responsibilities. On one side was Sarutobi Shinosuke's murderous gaze, and on the other side Guy said so. Although Yuta was full of reluctance, there was nothing he could do. While scolding Sarutobi Shinosuke for being insane, he complained about Guy's rash decision. Subsequently, the Umbus were divided into two groups. Sarutobi Shinosuke led one team. Yuta and Guy followed the other team, and went in two directions to flank a secret stronghold ahead. Ahead, at a secret base underground, a team of Umbu had already bursted in. The following two teams were lurking in two directions around the stronghold, waiting for the result. Suddenly, there was a burst of explosions in the underground stronghold. The ground collapsed, and smoke flew everywhere. A figure covered in blood rushed out of the underground stronghold and fled in the direction where Sarutobi Shinosuke's team was lurking. Chase! An Umbu on Yuta's side gave an order and immediately chased forward. Yuta, you stay here. I'll come back to you when the battle is over. Guy gave a quick command. The other Umbus didn't care either. For them, the strength of a Jonin guy was important. And Yuta, a child, was dispensable to them, and it didn't matter even if he didn't follow them. Soon, the umbus on Yuta's side and Guy chased towards the depths of the woods ahead. Yuta was left alone, waiting in place. Just when the figures of a group of people disappeared from sight. In the collapsed underground stronghold, the figure of Orochimaru suddenly came out. Even though he was seriously injured and his left shoulder was still bleeding, Orochimaru still retained his demeanor. Seeing the umbu who was thrown away by him, Orochimaru laughed. Before he was hit by the umbu, he had used the Orochimaru-style substitution technique, and his body remained in the debris. In addition, he had made an earth clone, which was disguised as the main body. It climbed out, and then escaped from the stronghold, attracting all the umbu who were chasing him. With a little trick, this group of idiots were lured away. Just when Orochimaru was about to flee in the other direction, Yuta, who was waiting on the spot, and Orochimaru's eyes met. The air seemed to be frozen. Chapter 19, Using 8 Inner Gates for the First Time in Real Combat. What sin did I commit in my past life? Why is this happening? For a while, only this thought remained in Yuta's mind. Obviously, he had gone to the dangerous land of rain and nothing happened. On the contrary, after returning to the land of fire, he met the rebel Orochimaru. He was also forcibly pulled by Sarutobi Huruzen to block Orochimaru together. It might have been better if the umbu had just fought Orochimaru directly here. He's just a genin after all. If he hid, almost no one would care. However, Orochimaru led the group of umbu and Guy away. He's the only one left here. Ho 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 ho, what a poor child. Orochimaru took out a kunai unhurriedly. He licked it with his long tongue, and stared at Yuta with a stern gaze. According to his expectations, the previous Earth clone should be able to buy him about 2 or 3 minutes. It's only been a while now. What's more, the opponent was just a child, and it wouldn't take much effort to deal with him. Let me guess why a kid like you appeared here. You should have bumped into that guy Sarutobi Huruzen, and you were probably forcefully pulled over. Turning his head, Orochimaru understood the situation. That fellow Huruzen, I'm afraid his eyes have turned red. He probably wants to kill me and get some merit, right? Looks like he doesn't have a brain. Even if he kills me and makes a great contribution, how can he be the Hokage with his meager strength? He spoke in a leisurely manner, ignoring Yuta who was on the opposite side. Never mind. Orochimaru shook his head, and killing intent appeared in his eyes. How can a brat like you understand what I am saying? I do understand. While his mind was racing, Yuta opened his mouth. He just wants to kill Senior and make great achievements, thereby enhancing his prestige and paving the way for becoming the Hokage. Oh. Orochimaru became interested. He took a closer look at Yuta's appearance, and suddenly recalled something. I remember that about half a year ago, there were 2 first-year little guys of the Uchiha clan who graduated early and became a genin, one named Uchiha Yuta and the other named Uchiha Itachi. I wonder which one you are. I am Uchiha Yuta. Yuta spoke slowly, stalling for as much time as possible. I have some interesting news on my side. Senior should be interested in this piece of news. I went to the land of rain on a mission before and heard a rumor by chance. Some people say that a mercenary organization named Akatsuki in the land of rain has a leader who possesses the legendary Rinnegan. As the words fell, and Orochimaru's pupils shrank. Rinnegan. The eyes of the legendary sage of 6 paths. Does such a thing really exist? No. This news was just said by the kid across from him. That's not right, why would he tell him this? With Orochimaru's cleverness, he reacted immediately. You're telling me this to delay for time and let those umbu come back? Well, let me think about it, you seem to be thinking more than that. You're worried that if you just let me go, or if you run away, you will be blamed by that guy Sarutobi Huruzen. So, you can't escape, and you can't just let me go. You can only delay for time here. Thinking of this, Orochimaru's eyes revealed a surprised look. What a smart kid, I'm very interested in you, how about it, are you interested in defecting with me? Being told the truth, cold sweat dripped down Yuta's forehead. Senior is joking. Really, what a pity. Orochimaru sighed, and his eyes instantly became sharp. There's still a minute left, and since that's the case, I can only kill you. Countless alarm bells sounded in Yuta's heart, and a sense of crisis swelled in his mind like a huge red exclamation mark. He used the 8 inner gates without hesitation. The first gate, opening gate, open. The second gate, gate of rest, open. The third gate, gate of life, open. His body immediately turned red, his chakra soared, and an invisible wave of air swept around. 8 inner gates. Orochimaru lost his voice. Regarding this forbidden technique, after the death of Might Die in battle, all well-informed ninjas of Konoha knew about it. With the power of a genin, after the 8 gates were fully opened, Dai confronted Kirigakuru's 7 ninja swordsmen alone, and he even killed some of them. You have actually learned the 8 inner gates, and looking at you, you should have opened the 3rd gate. Orochimaru revealed a fiery look in his eyes. I've changed my mind, I'm going to leave with you. If such an excellent genius stays in Konoha, it would be a pity. After he takes this kid away, and trains him a little, when the forbidden technique of living corpse reincarnation is completed, this kid will be the best vessel for him. Yuta even opened the 3rd gate, and activated the Two-tomo Sharingan at the start. With his current body, he could probably only keep the 3rd gate open for a minute. As long as Gai-sensei and those umbus come back, he will be safe. Putting 2 fingers together in front of the mouth, a large amount of chakra spewed out. A huge fire dragon slammed directly towards Orochimaru. Fire release, fire dragon bullet technique. It seems that what you can use without a hand seal is not just the great fireball technique. Orochimaru unhurriedly formed some hand seals, and he used an earth release to block the fire dragon. The ferocious fire dragon slammed into the wall made by earth release. The wall collapsed, and the fire burst into the sky. It turns out that you are still thinking of using ninjutsu to provide hints to those idiots, so that they can come this way immediately. Orochimaru looked at the firelight, and the corners of his mouth twitched. Not only is he talented, he is also very smart, and he is not panicking in the face of a life and death crisis. It would be a pity for such a genius to be the material for the living corpse reincarnation technique. For a time, Orochimaru even had some admiration for Yuta's talent in his heart. But knowing that the time was running out, Orochimaru didn't delay any longer. He rushed towards Yuta like a cannonball. So fast. Yuta's pupils trembled. Relying on Sharingan's prediction and the speed of 8 inner gates 3rd gate, he managed to barely dodge. This is a seriously injured Orochimaru. If Orochimaru was in good condition, he would have been killed in seconds with just that one blow. Two-tomo Sharingan, 8 years old. Orochimaru staggered towards Yuta, and he saw Yuta's Sharingan clearly. The fiery color in his eyes almost overflowed. 8 years old, Two-tomo Sharingan, master of fire release, 8 inner gates. Such a genius. Whether he is made a sacrifice to living corpse reincarnation or taken as a subordinate, he must be taken away. Chapter 20, Shocked Umbu. Damn it. Orochimaru cursed inwardly, gradually becoming anxious. Half a minute had passed, and he still hadn't captured this 8-year-old kid. Even if the other party is a genius, and his methods are great, he is still only 8 years old. Only half a year had passed since he had become a genin. But after Yuta opened the 3rd gate, his speed and strength soared to the Jonin level in a short time. Coupled with the insight of the Two-tomo Sharingan, he could predict Orochimaru's attacks in advance. And Orochimaru was already seriously injured before, and his strength was not as good as before. After all these things were added up, the result was that even though the difference in strength was obviously great, Orochimaru couldn't defeat Yuta in a short while. If the situation dragged on like this, and the Umbu rushed back to surround Orochimaru, the situation would be troublesome for him. Feeling anxious for a while, he used his uninjured right arm to punch Yuta. Hit. No, this touch. Orochimaru immediately realized that something was wrong and disturbed his chakra flow. Then he realized that he had just hit a tree. Genjutsu. When did that kid perform the Genjutsu? He didn't even see him make any hand seals. This kid doesn't need a hand seal to use Genjutsu as well. Wrong. The point is, he actually fell into a Genjutsu. Orochimaru was horrified, not knowing what was wrong with him. An 8-year-old kid, even if he had the Two-tomo Sharingan, shouldn't have been able to make him fall into a Genjutsu. Yuta was also surprised like Orochimaru. Seeing that the Genjutsu, false surroundings technique was in effect, he was also a little stunned. He knew that Orochimaru's Genjutsu resistance would become weaker in the future, but that was the case in the future. And he only had a Two-tomo Sharingan. He was not Itachi, who has the Mangekyo Sharingan in the future. But Yuta still tried to use a Genjutsu. Anyway, he didn't need a hand seal to cast it, and it was an instant thing. Unexpectedly, it was a success. Although Orochimaru quickly noticed the Genjutsu and cracked it, it was still a success. Is Orochimaru's Genjutsu resistance getting worse now? Yuta was puzzled. The other party was just defecting from Konoha, so the living corpse reincarnation technique had not been completed yet, right? Suddenly, Yuta thought of something. Before Orochimaru defected, he had left a curse mark on his disciple Mitarashi Anko, and that curse mark contained Orochimaru's soul fragment. That is to say, Orochimaru had already started to study souls before he defected, and he had even manipulated his own soul. He was indeed worthy of being a scientist. As Yuta thought so, his offensive did not stop at all, and he punched Orochimaru's left shoulder that had been injured before. Click. The sound of something cracking was heard. Feeling that the touch in his hand was wrong, Yuta immediately pulled back. Only then did he find that the part that was hit before had turned brown at this moment. It turned out that Orochimaru had used Earth Release, hardening in advance to defend against his attack. You little bastard. Orochimaru was annoyed for a while that he was actually caught in the Genjutsu of an 8-year-old kid. If he hadn't been prepared the Earth Release in advance, he would have been unable to bear the punch he received just now. Just as he was about to rush forward, he heard some sound coming from behind. Turning his head to look, he saw that 2 kunai with detonating talismans tied to them had appeared behind him at some point. While scolding in his heart, he quickly used wind release to blow away the kunais. Turning back, he noticed that something hot was rushing to his face, and a fierce fire dragon slammed into him directly. Damn it! Orochimaru, who didn't want to be charred, relied on Earth Release to harden his whole body and rushed out of the fire dragon's range. His love and admiration of Yuta's talent that had arisen before was left behind, and Orochimaru's heart was filled with killing intent. Because of him being hit by a Genjutsu, this kid caught the momentary gap and used such a combo. Before Yuta hit him with a punch, he threw kunais with detonating talismans behind him. When he was in a hurry to deal with it, Yuta used the Fire Dragon Bullet technique and hit him directly. Even Orochimaru had to admit that Yuta's combo was beautiful. His condition was very miserable as of now. This was the first time he was being played around with so much by someone so young. Why should I fight you in close quarters? Orochimaru shook his head and smiled. He quickly formed a hand seal, and a huge water dragon rose from the ground and blasted towards Yuta. A simplified version of the water dragon bullet technique of the second Hokage. And when Yuta resisted with the fire dragon bullet technique, Orochimaru kept making hand seals. Earth Release, Earth Flow River technique. The surrounding ground instantly turned into a turbulent mudslide. Yuta frowned and hurriedly jumped to the surrounding trees. The trees were knocked down and boulders were pulled, and he had to keep jumping away again. Orochimaru's arsenal of ninjutsu was definitely not small. If he competes in ninjutsu, his only advantage is that he does not need a hand seal, and his casting speed is faster. Jumping up and down the trees quickly, and dodging the mudslides under his feet, Yuta mobilized his chakra, wildly unleashing ninjutsus. One by one, the fire dragon bullet technique sprayed towards Orochimaru. Bastard! It was only then that Orochimaru realized that there was a problem. He was on the run, and he couldn't afford to splurge his chakra. And Yuta only needs to hold him for a while, and there is no need for Yuta to be stingy with chakra when it comes to ninjutsu. Estimating the time in his heart, Orochimaru realized that by this time those Umbu should be back soon. No. He must leave quickly. Orochimaru's eyes widened, and his heart exploded with anger. He couldn't even take down an 8-year-old kid in 1 minute. This kind of thing is even more humiliating than being given the title of Sannin after being defeated in the hands of Hanzo. But at this time, he didn't have time to care about anything else, and Orochimaru immediately planned to leave. Not far away. A figure with white hair rushed over first, and electric light wrapped around his body. He rushed straight towards Orochimaru. Hatake Kakashi. Immediately behind him was Guy, who had already opened the sixth gate and was covered in green light. It's safe. Seeing Kakashi and Guy arrive, Yuta finally breathed a sigh of relief. At this point, the time limit for the 8 inner gates had also been reached. The skyrocketing chakra disappeared, the enormous power and speed disappeared, and only extreme exhaustion remained. Soon. In the woods, a large group of Umbu arrived. Looking at the messy ground here, they noticed that there were mostly burning marks of fire release here. They looked up again and saw Yuta, who had just exited the 8 inner gates state. A group of Umbu were amazed and found it hard to understand. This battlefield, was this kid fighting with Orochimaru? This 8-year-old kid actually managed to hold Orochimaru back. Isn't he actually an 8-year-old genin who just graduated half a year ago? Chapter 21, Yuta becomes famous. Facing the combination of Kakashi and Guy, plus a large number of Umbu assisting, even Orochimaru was no match for them. What's more, Orochimaru was already injured. The previous battle with Yuta also consumed a lot of his chakra. Even Yuta doubted whether Orochimaru could escape this wave. But Orochimaru is Orochimaru after all. He summoned multiple snakes and left a clone to attract the firepower, and he escaped quietly through earth release. Uchiha Yuta, I will remember you. The clone left by Orochimaru left such a sentence before it was destroyed. His voice was cold and majestic, but there was some playfulness in it as well. Yuta's face was expressionless. In his heart, he cursed his bad luck. He stumbled upon this disastrous situation unexpectedly. But he didn't regret taking the chance to intercept Orochimaru. At that time, he had no other choice. He could either let Orochimaru leave, or just run away. If he had run away, he might have easily been killed by Orochimaru. Or maybe he would later be punished by Sarutobi Huruzen. Yuta, sorry. After the battle was over, Guy stopped using the 8 inner gates and said apologetically. I was too hasty on my side. I was led away by Orochimaru and I put you in danger. Yuta rolled his eyes weakly. The aftermath of the 8 inner gates hadn't been resolved yet, and he didn't even want to move now. In his opinion, he and Get shouldn't have been involved in blocking Orochimaru. It's not their job. It's that old guy Sarutobi Huruzen who let Orochimaru go, and it's the Umbu's job to chase Orochimaru. Hearing Guy's words, the Umbus on the side were embarrassed. They were distracted by Orochimaru's little tricks, and a group of Umbu were toyed with by Orochimaru. Instead, Yuta, an 8-year-old kid, stopped Orochimaru abruptly until they hurried back. However, even so, they couldn't keep Orochimaru. With this comparison, they felt even more embarrassed. Sarutobi Huruzen even had a dark face. After Orochimaru ran through Earth Release, he was now completely missing. The great credit for chasing down Orochimaru could be regarded as just slipping through his hands. The responsibility for the failure of the pursuit will most likely rest on him. For a while, he felt resentful, thinking that it would be fine if Yuta had let Orochimaru leave. In this case, there would be someone who could carry the responsibility off his shoulders. But now, not only is there no way to blame Yuta, the other party even blocked Orochimaru with all his strength until they came back. Thinking of this, Sarutobi Huruzen felt a little tired. When he looked at Yuta, his expression turned even worse. Kakashi tried to get a ninja dog to track Orochimaru's scent, but after failing, he gave up the attempt. He turned around and came to Yuta's side with a curious look on his face. At your age, you can actually stop Orochimaru for so long. How did you do it? I mainly delayed by talking for a long time, and then relied on the 8 inner gates to hold on. Yuta moved his body reluctantly and found that his whole body was sore, so he simply lied down. Thank you Kakashi-senpai. If you had arrived a little later, the time of the 8 inner gates would be over. As a student of Guy, he and Kakashi had dealt with each other many times, and they were familiar with each other. 8 inner gates. Kakashi was a little surprised. He knew that Yuta followed Guy for high-intensity workouts every day. But he didn't know that Yuta had learned the 8 inner gates. Yuta is now able to last more than a minute with the 3rd gate open. Guy showed his thumbs and proudly said. After opening the 3rd gate, Yuta is even able to fight a jonin for a short time. Whoa! These words were like boulders thrown into the calm lake of the Umbu's heart. They all knew about the forbidden 8 inner gates, the strength of this forbidden technique, and the difficulty of learning it. It takes day after day of exercise to be able to use this technique and gain the excess explosive strength at the critical moment. Some people in the Umbu had also tried to learn the 8 inner gates before, but they basically all failed. Even Kakashi could only open the first 2 gates at most. And Yuta, an 8-year-old kid, can actually open the 3rd gate. Not to mention, according to Guy, this kid can match a Jonin after opening the 3rd gate. Doesn't that mean that the other party basically already has the strength of a Jonin? A group of Umbu looked at each other. Many people felt ashamed. To be able to last against a Jonin for a short period of time, many Umbu do not have this ability. Many Umbu are just Chunin. Well, it looks like you will be famous after returning to Konoha, Kakashi said. Indeed. After returning to Konoha and after the Umbu hand in the pursuit report, the news of the battle will spread quickly. Uchiha Yuta stopped Orochimaru for more than a minute. Sarutobi Huruzen was so shocked that he could barely hold the pipe in his mouth. He looked at his eldest son in front of him. Indeed. Sarutobi Shinnosuke said reluctantly. His Sharingan has already reached the Two-tomo stage, and he has a bunch of fire release and genjutsus up his sleeve. He can even open the 3rd gate, and Orochimaru was even already injured. However, Orochimaru probably didn't take him seriously at first, so Yuta was able to delay for enough time. Sarutobi Huruzen nodded slowly. He got up and walked to the window. Looking at Konoha outside the window, the light and shadow in his eyes changed. Root base. He stalled Orochimaru for over a minute, 8 years old. Chunin level. 8 inner gates. Shimura Danzo's only left eye became sharp, and he pressed the subordinate in front of him. After getting another affirmative answer from his subordinate, Danzo finally believed it. Uchiha Yuta, and that Uchiha Itachi, the Uchiha clan is getting stronger and stronger. Similar scenes occurred in various places in Konoha. Many ninja clans' leaders were full of emotion after learning about this record. Some of them even said Yuta's talent was almost not weaker than that of Kakashi, who was a 6-year-old Chunin. At the gate of Konoha village, Itachi walked in with a dazed face. He had awakened his Sharingan, but he was not as happy as he thought he would be. When going out on a mission, his team was attacked by a masked monster. To protect him, one of his teammates died in front of him. And he also successfully awakened a Two-tomo Sharingan. Uchiha Sharingan. Itachi stroked his eyes, and a feeling of hatred arose in his heart. Really, the power of evil. Suddenly, he thought of something. There was some expression on his face. He hurried back to the Uchiha clan land, and ran in the direction of Yuta's house without even going home. Chapter 22, Embarrassed Itachi. Regarding the discussion about him in Konoha, Yuta didn't pay attention to it at all. Now he just wanted to stay in Konoha, at least until he had the strength of a Jonin. The ninja world is too dangerous. He thought he would encounter Pain, Hanzo, Obito, etc., but he didn't. But encountering Orochimaru, who had just rebelled, was a surprise for him. Regarding the encounter with Orochimaru, Yuta wanted to keep it a secret from Izumi's family as he didn't want them to worry. But he was helpless as the news spread from Fugaku to the ears of other clansmen, and then Izumi's family knew about it. They didn't feel proud, but rather scared for a while. Especially Izumi, she grabbed Yuta and turned him over and over for a while to check his body for injuries. Then she finally felt relieved after confirming that there was nothing missing. I finally understand why, Yuta, you always say that the ninja world is too dangerous. Izumi said with lingering fears. It was obviously just a B-rank mission with no difficulty, but Yuta inexplicably had to block Orochimaru. That Mr. Umbu is too unreasonable, forcing Yuta to do such a dangerous thing. After listening to Yuta's entire experience, Izumi said angrily. That's indeed the case. Yuta said so in his heart, but he still coughed twice. Be careful, you can say this kind of thing at home, but don't say it outside. Also, now, you should obey me obediently, don't think about graduating early. I can guide you to improve your strength. I'll strive to make you reach the level of a Jonin by the time you graduate at the age of 12, and then you will barely have the strength to protect yourself. Izumi opened her mouth and seemed startled. 12-year-old Jonin. How can I do it? The Hatake Kakashi that her ninja school's teachers often talked about became a jonin at the age of 12. I believe in your potential, Yuta said seriously. On the night of genocide in the original book, the 13-year-old Izumi's Sharingan had reached the 3-tomo level. It can be seen that Izumi's talent is very good. Coupled with his daily training, having jonin-level strength at the age of 12 should be doable. Just when Izumi said with a bitter face that she couldn't do it, there was a knock on Yuta's door suddenly. When Yuta went out, he saw a little red face, and that person was slightly panting. It seemed that it was Itachi who had come running over. Yuta, please have a spar with me. As he spoke, Itachi activated his Sharingan, which he had just awakened. After he previously lost to Yuta in ninja school, he had been thinking about a rematch every day. He wanted to fight Yuta again after awakening the Sharingan. But while he was waiting excitedly, Yuta shook his head and refused. I'm sorry, I already have a Two-tomo Sharingan. As he spoke, he used his Sharingan. Itachi opened his mouth wide and looked at the 2 tomos in Yuta's right and left eyes respectively. He felt like a basin of cold water was being poured on his head. The restlessness before was instantly extinguished. Without saying a word, he left in despair, not even noticing the Izumi, who was peeking out of Yuta's house. Back home. When Itachi saw a lovely younger brother who was rushing towards him, he came back to his senses, and his mood became much better. Big brother, I heard that big brother Yuta who graduated with you seems to have had a fight with some kind of snake. Sasuke, who was less than 3 years old, said what he had heard from his father. Snake. Itachi was a little surprised. What snake? When you were not in the village, Orochimaru rebelled because his human experiments were brought to light. Fugaku came out and said. As for what Sasuke said about Yuta, Yuta participated in the operation to block Orochimaru. I heard that he also blocked Orochimaru for a few minutes, and successfully dragged the battle until the Umbu arrived. Although he relied on a forbidden technique, many people say that he still has the strength of a Chunin without relying on the forbidden technique. As the clan leader of the Uchiha clan, he was proud of such a genius emerging among his people. Intercept. Orochimaru? Chunin strength. Itachi's expression froze again. The joy that he had firmly suppressed from awakening his Sharingan before had completely disappeared at this moment. After the Orochimaru incident, Yuta resumed his day-to-day practice. And he also told Guy that he hoped to take missions that were in the Land of Fire as much as possible in the future. Perhaps because of the guilt of the past, Guy directly agreed. On the contrary, Itachi awakening the Sharingan at the age of 8 was also spread. In Konoha, there was another small stir. Some people even called Yuta and Itachi together as the Uchiha twins. But this had no effect on Yuta. After this, Yuta's life became monotonous. He trained daily, guided Izumi in training daily, and occasionally went out to do a mission. However, he never encountered such a troublesome thing as the Orochimaru incident again. Yuta was also relieved a lot. This day, Yuta was on the training ground of the Uchiha clan, guiding Izumi's daily training. A young man with long black hair and sharp eyebrows walked towards him. Uchiha Yuta. Hearing the sound, Yuta noticed that the tone of the person coming here didn't seem to be very good. Yuta became puzzled as he hadn't done anything recently, right? Turning his head, he found that the person approaching was Uchiha Tekka. When he graduated early, Fugaku said that he would be assigned a mentor jonin from the Uchiha clan as well. He said that if he had any problem in training, he could ask the other party for advice when he had time. But since graduating early, he doesn't seem to have gone to Uchiha Hogan even once at all. Senior Tekka. Yuta greeted politely. There's no need to be so polite. Tekka waved his hand and got to the point directly. The clan leader arranged for me to be your mentor jonin, and I should also fulfill my responsibilities. However, you could never came to me once, so I could only come to you myself. I heard that the jonin the village arranged for you, Mike Guy, is only good at taijutsu. How is your performance in other fields, especially the Sharingan? Seeing this, Yuta felt like he probably understood the other party's intention. Maybe because he hadn't asked him for advice, he was worried that he was wasting his talent. He thought that he might have not focused on the Sharingan, right? So, Tekka probably came this time to investigate his progress. Chapter 23, Senior Tekka, what can you teach me? On the training field. If I find out that you are not good at using the Sharingan, I will train you harshly in the future. Tekka activated his Two-tomo Sharingan and said. In his opinion, the Uchiha clan, who have the Sharingan, should focus on the Sharingan and give full play to the Sharingan's abilities. Specifically in Taijutsu, the correct way is to rely on Sharingan's insight and lean towards a technical style of Taijutsu. Not like that Might guy. A rough brute that relies on strength and speed to win. This time, the reason he came to Yuta specifically was because he was worried that Yuta would take the wrong path and waste his talent. The talent of the Uchiha clan cannot be buried. Yuta's expression was serious, and he used his Sharingan directly. Two pitch-black tomos slowly rotated in both of his eyes, and his muscles moved slightly. Is it only to this extent? Tekka was a little disappointed in his heart. He used his Sharingan to easily predict Yuta's actions, and dodged to the side. However, in the next second, Yuta's movements were smooth and natural, and he had already predicted where Tekka would dodge to. Then, he attacked that place. This! Tekka exclaimed directly, and his pupils shrank suddenly. Seeing Yuta's fists getting closer and closer to him, Tekka relied on the speed of an elite jonin to withdraw at a high speed and retreat. Feeling the fist wind across his cheeks, and a burning sensation on his face, he became ashamed. How did you do it just now? With his face flushed red, Tekka asked a little aggrievedly. Just now, if he was just an ordinary jonin, he might not have been able to escape. Yuta explained patiently. Firstly, the fake action was based on Sharingan's insight, which made Saner make mistakes in prediction. These are the experiences of Gai-sensei. Then the reason why I could estimate the position of the senior was also due to the experiences taught by Gai-sensei. Tekka looked a little surprised. Oh. Does Might Guy also have experience against the Sharingan? This level of experience is impossible to get by fighting Yuta, who just has a two-tome Sharingan. Gai-sensei often spars against senior Kakashi, and he has a lot of combat experience against the three-tomo Sharingan. Yuta explained. So, it's Hatake Kakashi. Tekka suddenly nodded. That guy is amazing. As an outsider, he was able to upgrade our Sharingan from 2-tomo to 3-tomo. The corners of Yuta's mouth slightly twitched. Your feelings of admiration for Kakashi is not because he became a jonin at the age of 12, but because upgraded the Sharingan without being an Uchiha. No wonder there are always people who think Uchiha's ninjas are arrogant. But this arrogance is not a disadvantage. It is normal to be proud of one's own bloodline limit. What followed was another set of simple physical exercises. Tekka controlled his speed and strength, and for a while he had a hard time dealing with Yuta. Okay, let's stop here. Wiping the cold sweat from his forehead, Tekka hurriedly stopped. Overall, it looks like you have learned some fighting techniques from Might Guy, and then you have indirectly learned how to deal with the Sharingan from him, which is good. Tekka nodded with satisfaction. In the beginning, many Uchihas were a little resentful when they learned that Yate's mentor Jonin was a young man who had just become a Jonin and was only good at Taijutsu. They felt that the village didn't value their Uchiha's genius. Now it seemed that the jonin arranged by the village for Yuta was a good choice. Then, let's examine your level of ninjutsu and genjutsu. Tekka said with confidence. In his opinion, Guy was only good at taijutsu, and there should be no way for him to give Yuta any guidance in these two aspects. If Yuta wants to improve his attainment in these two aspects, he will still have to find him. Suddenly, Tekka found the little girl named Izumi beside him, and she looked at him a little strangely. As if, with a sense of pity. Shaking his head, he dispelled this inexplicable thought. On Izumi's side, she and Yuta were mostly together, and she fully understood Yuta's level of ninjutsu and genjutsu. Every ninjutsu and genjutsu could be learned by Yuta by just reading the scroll once, and he could even perform them without any hand seals. Tekka wants to investigate Yuta's progress. Isn't he just trying to humiliate himself? Next, Izumi saw Yuta directly use fire release and genjutsu without any hand seals. On the other hand, Tekka was speechless and his mouth was wide open. You can perform these without a hand seal. Tekka stammered. He thought that Yuta was able to use the Great Fireball technique without any hand seals just because he was too skilled in that particular technique. Well, as I said at the beginning, as long as you can precisely control the flow of chakra in your body when you use a ninjutsu, you don't need a hand seal. Yuta said. When he graduated early, he had already explained why he could use the Great Fireball technique to Fugaku and the others. Tekka. If it weren't for the fact that so many people had tried and failed, he might have believed it too. Even Shisui couldn't use the simple Great Fireball technique without hand seals. Senior Tekka, what else needs to be tested? Yuta said politely. Ahem, nothing else for the time being. Tekka's face turned hot, and he felt ashamed. He was excited to find Yuta and test his progress, but this was the result. Looking at Yuta's expression, he felt that he was asking him what else he could teach him. Tekka's brain ran fast, thinking frantically. Otherwise, he would have no other choice than to step down today. Ahem, you still need to learn some skills about the use of Sharingan in Taijutsu. After thinking for a while, Tekka straightened his expression and said with a serious face, Hatake Kakashi, after all, only knows some techniques that he pondered by himself, and it can't be compared to the skills handed down by our ancestors from generation to generation. Also, I saw that you were not particularly good at Genjutsu, and there is still room for improvement. I will teach you all of these later. Yuta nodded politely and requested for more advice. After 24, taking the Chunin exam alone. 2 years later. Chunin exam. Well, Lord Hokage wants you both to take the Chunin exam this time. Fugaku said to Yuta and Itachi in front of him, he wants you to say yes and he wants to use this to boost Konoha's prestige. Hearing this, Yuta laughed disdainfully, does Konoha still have such a thing as prestige? Fugaku closed his eyes and became speechless, and Itachi frowned slightly and tried to refute him. They all knew what Yuta was talking about. A few months ago, Kimogakuru's ninjas came to Konoha to sign a peace agreement. But the leader of the mission took the opportunity to kidnap Hyuga Hinata. Then he was killed on the spot by Hinata's father, Hyuga Hayashi. After that, Kimogakure said that Konoha had wrongfully killed the leader of the mission and asked Konoha to hand over the murderer. In the end, under the arrangement of the senior officials of Konoha and the Hyuga clan, Hyuga Hizashi committed suicide in place of his elder brother, and his body was given to Kimogakure. That's how it ended. But there are no impervious walls in the world. Even though Konoha covered up the matter a lot, it still spread. After that, Konoha's prestige naturally plummeted. They were bullied so miserably, and they even killed their own residents to please the other party. Anyone would look down on Konoha. Anyway, what Lord Hokage means is that he hopes you two can take the Chunin exam alone and do your best. At that time, many nobles and daimyos will come to watch. This is an opportunity to enhance the prestige of Konoha. Fugaku said with a straight face, and made no other comments. Yuta nodded yes, then prepared to leave Fugaku's house with a blank face. Yuta. Suddenly, Itachi in the back stopped Yuta and said, Lord Hokage also has his own difficulties. If he doesn't do that, the war will break out and more people will die. Compared to war, a person's sacrifice is worth it. Humph. Yuta activated his Sharingan directly and turned around. He stared at Itachi behind him and said, I was just wondering, does the death of Hyuga Hizashi fit the will of fire? Having said that, he closed his eyes, and deactivated the Sharingan. He calmed down his ups and downs, and left directly. This guy's pupil power has become stronger again. Itachi sighed at Yuta's pupil power. He didn't care what Yuta said. For him, war was the most tragic thing in the world. To avoid war, Hyuga Hizashi's sacrifice was worth it, and this was the true meaning of the will of fire. Back home. Yuta checked the system panel. Host, Uchiha Yuta. Age, 10 years old. Comprehensive strength, Chunin, strong. Sharingan pupil power, LV2, 480/500. Chakra, LV2, 450/500. Chakra attribute, fire. Talent, Indra bloodline, monster physique. The pupil power has grown a little more. Yuta stroked his eyes. When he saw it before, the pupil power was still 470. Because he was disgusted by what Itachi said before, his pupil power increased by 10 points. Itachi, this person, has become even more crooked. Considering what he said before, it's no wonder that he can kill his father and mother in the future. And Sarutobi Huruzen and the will of fire. In a word, disgusting. Finally I am not far from a jonin. Yuta shook his head, dispelling the thoughts in his mind. He didn't expect that it would take so long to upgrade from a Chunin to a Jonin. Thinking about it too, Kakashi was a genin at 5 years old, and he became a Chunin at 6 years old. But it took him another 6 years to be promoted to a Jonin at the age of 12. This was because he was dragged down by his physical development. With my current strength that is infinitely close to a Jonin, when the Chunin exam is over, my comprehensive strength should probably be able to upgrade to the level of a Jonin. Yuta couldn't help but look forward to what new talent the system would analyze then. Hyuga clan. We Hyuga must send someone to take the Chunin exam this time. The elder of the Hyuga clan said firmly. He had already heard that the twin stars of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Yuta and Uchiha Itachi, were selected by the third Hokage to take the Chunin exam. If the Hyuga can't even come up with a person who can compete with those two, how can they compare with the Uchiha clan? Who are you going to send? Hyuga Hayashi's face was expressionless, as if he didn't care about everything. His brother had died for him not long ago. He didn't care about all this mess now. Wuji, come in. The clan elder called out to the door. A young Hyuga ninja of 13 or 14 years old walked in. The Konoha ninja forehead protector was tied on his forehead, covering the caged bird pattern below. A young ninja named Hyuga Wuji, with a blank face, mechanically saluted the clan leader and clan elder. Wuji has had a reputation as a genius since he was a child. This time, he will take the Chunin exam and try to beat those Uchihas. The clan elder said, as if he had a great determination. For the Chunin exam, I can teach you the revolving heaven that only the main family can learn. This is your supreme honor. I hope you can remember the duty of a branch house member. Wuji's eyes suddenly had some radiance, but when he heard the following words, it quickly disappeared. He just nodded and said yes. Kimogakure. Darui, although you are the only one who will take the Chunin exam this time, you must come in first place. The fourth Raikage entrusted the 13-year-old boy in front of him. Darui was the most outstanding among Kimogakure's younger generation, and the junior he valued most. Darui was even a possible contender for the fifth Raikage's position. Understood, Lord Raikage. Darui replied lazily. His strength was close to that of a Jonin's, and he even had storm release bloodline limit. So, a little Chunin exam was easy for him. He wondered if there would be anyone in Konoha who could interest him. Well, work hard, it's best to win the first place with absolute strength. The fourth Raikage was also very confident in Darui's strength. Before, through the Hyuga incident, Konoha's prestige had been severely reduced. But that was not enough. With the help of this Chunin exam, he would let the whole ninja world have a look at the younger generation of ninjas. He would show them that Kimogakure was the strongest. Chapter 25, just a warm-up. Konoha is really bustling. Darui, who had just arrived at Konoha, said with emotion. It's just a pity that Konoha's Hokage is a coward. A Kumo ninja next to him scoffed recklessly. He completely ignored the Konoha villagers and ninjas who were glaring at him. Say less. The blonde sea reminded with a frown. Although he felt the same way, he couldn't say it directly on Konoha Street. TCH. The previous Kumo ninja pouted in disdain. They were Konoha's guests now, who would dare to take action against them? Were they not afraid that the Hyuga incident would repeat itself? See, I'm sorry for needing you to investigate the opponents that I might encounter in the exam. Darui scratched his head and said a little embarrassedly. He was the only one taking the Chunin exam this time. The two teammates were just following along. No problem, leave it to me. She said confidently. This time Darui, your main opponent should be the Uchiha clan and the Hyuga clan. C talked about the information he had heard in Konoha. Among the Uchiha, two young ninjas called Twin Stars, and a ninja from the Hyuga clan are your biggest competition. What the hell? The Kumo ninja, who had uttered wild words before, looked at the information recorded in his hand with disdain. The so-called Uchiha twins are just two 10-year-old kiddos. Is there no one Elise in the Uchiha clan? From my point of view, the one who deserves a little attention this time is just the ninja from the Hyuga clan. Darui carefully read the information in his hand, and he was relieved. He said lazily, it's boring, nothing to look forward to at all. Two 10-year-old kiddos, totally not worth caring about. As for the Hyuga ninja, with his initial mastery of the lightning release chakra mode, he didn't need to care about him. The first written test passed easily, and the second Death Forest test ended without any disturbance. Although the second game tested the overall strength of the team, with the strength of Yuta and Itachi, they both easily passed alone. By the time of the third exam, nobles and bigwigs from all over the whole ninja world came to watch. The clan leaders of the various ninja clans in Konoha also came to watch. Is there anyone worth paying attention to in this Chunin exam? I heard that there were 2 ninjas from the Uchiha clan, known collectively as the Twin Stars, and they both have participated. Huh? Didn't I hear that those 2 were 10-year-old kiddos? Hey! What 10-year-old twin star? No wonder Konoha was bullied like that by Kimogakure, but they didn't dare to retaliate. I heard that Kimogakure only sent a ninja named Darui this time. I wonder how strong he is. It is said that Darui fought against a Jonin for a period of time without losing, and he has even possesses a bloodline limit called Storm Release. Oh! That's amazing. It seems that the first place this time will be from Kimogakure. If Kimogakure, who only sent one person, wins the first place, I wonder how embarrassed Konoha will be. On the viewing stage, there was a lot of discussion. On the contrary, the clan leaders of the various ninja clans in Konoha sneered. Regarding Itachi, they didn't understand his specific strength. But Yuta. 2 years ago, he fought the injured Orochimaru for over a minute. In comparison, Darui, who was undefeated against a Jonin for a period of time, is nothing, right? On a huge open field. A white-haired Umbu acted as the referee this time. Yuta recognized who the other party was at a glance. That white hair was really recognizable. Kakashi's mask was pretty useless. The first exam, Kimogakure's Darui versus Konoha's Uchiha Yuta. Kakashi announced loudly. Yuta didn't expect that he would be the first to appear on stage. Moreover, he ran into the favorite to win the championship, the future 5th Raikage Darui. As he walked towards the center of the field, he tried to understand the thoughts of the village. Want me to use the 8 inner gates to instantly defeat the other party? Yuta was disdainful in his heart. Sarutobi Huruzen likes to do these silly little things. Since he wanted Kimogakure to be embarrassed, he let Darui fight first, and even make the user of the 8 inner gates his opponent. At that time, even if Darui wins, he will be exhausted. After that, the village can naturally arrange for others to defeat Darui. But Yuta walked to the center of the field and stood opposite the lazy Darui. Having practiced with Guy for so long, he doesn't really need to rely on the 8 inner gates. As Kakashi said start, Yuta and Darui's expressions immediately turned sharp. Darui, who despised Yuta before, immediately gave up his contempt after feeling Yuta's chakra. Yuta's momentum was no weaker than his. It seems that this Chunin exam will not be as boring as I thought it would be. Darui moved his muscles and bones, and suddenly abandoned his previous laziness. Boom. The battle began. The 2 attacking at full speed collided with each other. Soon, a sound like a sonic boom was heard. There was an exclamation from the stands. Only the Jonins in the stands could see the movements of the 2 just now. His speed is very fast, and his strength is also very strong. Darui looked excited. A strong opponent. However, Darui didn't know why, but he felt a little strange when he collided with Yuta's arm just now. He didn't have any time to think about it. Facing Yuta, who was rushing up again, Darui quickly raised his speed to parry. Boom. 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 Continuous explosions sounded in the air. It was very difficult to see the 2 figures. So fast. It's too fast to see clearly. That 10-year-old kid is so powerful, he is on equal footing with Kimogakure's Darui. Who has the upper hand now? The ordinary people in the stands looked very confused. The speed of Yuta and Darui was too fast, and they were completely unable to see the high-speed taijutsu battle. As expected, Yuta still has the upper hand, as expected of an Uchiha. In the stands, a Jonin from Konoha stared at Yuta for a while, and then he heaved a sigh of relief. He was of course uncomfortable with letting Kimogakure's ninja stand out on his own turf. So, even if an Uchiha wins, it's acceptable. On the field, the 2, who had been fighting at high speed for a while, temporarily separated. Darui gasped violently, with admiration in his eyes. There are really countless geniuses in Konoha. If you were the same age as me, I am afraid that I would not be your match. In the previous fight, he was actually suppressed by the other party. But if this is your limit, this battle will end now. As Darui said, he mobilized his chakra and used lightning release to stimulate his whole body. I promised Lord Raikage that I would take the first place. The blue lightning release chakra filled his whole body. This is the primary form of lightning release chakra mode. It enables the user to use lightning release chakra to activate and stimulate the whole body to improve strength, speed, and reflexes in all aspects. However, Yuta also grinned. Who told you that I used all my strength just now? As he spoke, he rolled up his sleeves and trousers, revealing the weight he was carrying underneath. It was just a warm-up just now. The real battle has just begun.